This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Dissipate to provide the perfect start to a summer's morning in the bush. We have lots and lots of promise as we go out in search of all kinds of amazing creatures on this, your very own live African safari. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Djuma. As you can see, it is a moody start to the day. There's a few clouds, and that's hopefully going to mean good conditions for all kinds of animals to be out and about. It's fairly cool this morning, given the temperatures that we've had over the last little bit. But before we get into what we're going to be up to this morning, I need to tell you who I am. My name is Tristan. On camera, I've got Mpho this morning, and we are slowly checking the western side of Djuma, the northwestern side, because we had tracks for dogs which I think are from yesterday evening. I believe they crossed this side somewhere. So we're just going to have a little scratch around just to see if they maybe haven't come back during the course of the evening, as well as to see if there's any sign of, Tingana, Hukumuri, Shadulu, Kara, all the various leopards that spend time. In fact, there's a leopard track already right next to us, so let's just have a little quick look at this and see if indeed it is fresh. Just trying to see if I can find a nice example for you guys. There's one that is here. It's not very clear and easy to see. I don't know if you're going to be able to get it. It's right on the edge of the road. The car might be a bit close for it, but you'll see that there's a big sort of puff of sort of mangled sand. If I put my finger there, just come to the left a little bit. So it's this one over here. That there is actually a leopard track. It doesn't look fresh. It is for a male leopard. But we'll have a little look around. I just want to check this. The elephant is far fresh, and it looks like the elephant is stepping on top of the leopard track. So you might not be seeing the elephant track because of the sort of wideness of the frame, but if you have a look here, there is an ellie that's been walking. So this is the track over here. This is little bits of kind of mud that he's been standing on, and then this is the leopard track. Now, in terms of making it out, this would be the back of the pad with the 3 lobes coming here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. But because this part of the road is so soft, when this leopard is standing, it's doing that, and so it's not really clear to see the toes as well as the back of the pad. But I think the leopard is on top, which is good news. The elephant track is quite fresh, so the leopard on top is good news for us. Hopefully we'll be able to find this male. We'll see out here. Could be a number of different leopards. It could be Tingana, it could be Hukumuri, Mulawati these days roams around all over the place. Could be him as well. So we'll just have a quick check and see. I'm just trying to double check these tracks and just make 100% sure that I'm correct in that the elephant is. It's quite interesting. There's a hyena following this leopard as well. You can see where the leopard's standing and the hyena's standing on top of its track. No, the elephant is on top. I thought there was one track there that looked like it was a bit fresher, but it's the elephant's definitely on top of the leopard, which means it could be from early yesterday afternoon. But we'll follow it anyway and just see where it goes. It's always good just to start getting a little bit of a kind of map when you return back to an area of where things are moving. Now, talking about returning back to an area, there's somebody else that I'm sure many of you are excited to see, and that is Steve, the Vov Falconbridge, and he wants to say good morning. Good morning and welcome to the other vehicle out here live this morning, coming to you from Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, where it is my first woodland kingfisher
of the season. Hello everybody, my name is Steve Fogwich, joined by Theo Tamer on camera, and as always, very excited to have you with us on board. You can maybe just hear the bird calling over my shoulder. I know that before I went away, we had a running sort of competition with who was going... Oh, spoonbills are coming down to land, Theo. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there's a spoonbill coming down on the left there. African spoonbills are very cool birds. There we go. One's landed in the tree, another one on its way down. We were having a competition about who would guess the right arrival time of the woodland kingfishers. I said the 18th of November. I have been away for about 2.5 months, so I'm not sure exactly... Here I'm calling over my shoulder when they arrived. So maybe if someone in Final Control or one of the viewers can let me know, when did the woodland kingfishers officially return back to Djuma? It's always a very noticeable thing because they arrive with a lot of noise. African spoonbills, on the other hand, do make some noises, but they're nowhere near as vociferous as the woodland kingfishers, who are here to breed. Just going to keep quiet for a moment and allow you to sort of soak up some of the sounds of the birds coming from around Vuyatela watering hole. Sounds of the African summer. Off he goes. So it is very green this morning. It's probably been green for some time. There's lots of water. So like Tristan, we're just going to be familiarizing ourselves once again with the area, seeing what's going on, seeing where the puddles are. And we will be doing a little bit of focus on birds this morning, and maybe see what wild flowers have emerged. But it is wonderful to be back. Wonderful to be back in the wilderness, where we arrived yesterday afternoon. It was very warm, and I've no doubt this afternoon it's going to get a lot warmer. Let's quickly send you over to Tristan, who's also found himself a feathered friend.
As you can see, we've got a bit of light that has come through, which is really, really nice, and it's highlighting a bird that generally appears very, very drab. Now, normally when we see things like hardy-dars, you can hear us making a lot of noise. It's not one of my favorite birds, but in this situation, they really actually are quite interesting to look at. You see the iridescence that's on the wing there. When you get really good light, especially early morning, late afternoon, and they're sitting in it, their actual wing, there's a little patch that's on it, and you get these beautiful bronze kind of iridescences that come off of that wing. It's just a play of light. It's not that they have those color pigments in there. It's just the way that it is able to reflect the light and the way that the feather is structured that causes us to see that iridescent effect. And it actually adds a bit of color to an otherwise quite drab bird. Like I say, if it had been 5 minutes ago when there wasn't much light, that bronze sort of sheen on the wing certainly would not have appeared. It would have looked like a very brown kind of drab bird sitting up there. Now, quite common to see these guys at this time of the day up in a tree. Normally we see them on the ground foraging for food, but when it's early morning and it's just getting light, and especially because we had quite a cloudy start to our morning, a lot of the time they stay up in these trees waiting for a bit more light, where they'll come down and then start feeding. In an area like this, there's a huge amount of predators, and so being out and about before the light is asking for trouble. A bird of this size could be a target for anything from lions all the way down to things like pythons, even potentially caracals, servals. So they're quite aware of that, and they'll spend their time up in a tree like this at night. And then now, as the sun is starting to rise, once they've done a bit of preening, then they come down, and they'll use that long beak in order to go and try and feed and kind of find all kinds of little insects. And at the moment, they'll be having an absolute field day because there's little crickets and grasshoppers and various insects everywhere. And so it's a time of plenty for these guys. Now, I was saying it's not my favorite bird, and the reason why is you hear that noise that it's making every now and then. It's a bit of a squawk, isn't it? It's not exactly a beautiful songbird. And these guys are all throughout where I come from. So in Johannesburg, which was where I grew up, these guys used to come and sit outside my windowsill, and they would start making a racket like this at sort of 4:30 in the morning in summer, which when you're a 16, 17, 18-year-old and you just want to be in bed on a Saturday or Sunday morning, these guys squawking as loud as they do outside your window is never very pleasant at all. All right, well, let's carry on now that the hardy-da has left us. Our leopard track is cut off. It's kind of gone, by the looks of it, in a sort of north westerly direction. So I just want to come up towards Sydney's Dam, just check if it hasn't cut over that way. It's going to be a bit tricky to follow in this area because it's undulating, and so the signal is a bit up and down as we go through. And then the Manuleti is also right here, so if it's gone north and into the Manuleti, obviously there's very, very little we can do about it. But I'm just double checking as we go, just in case maybe he went off and then has come back onto the road. But it seems like his last track went in to this block. So we'll just have a little look around and check that he hasn't popped out somewhere along here. I'm going to do a little wider loop though. Head a bit more east first and then come down the boundary. The boundary road is a much easier road to see tracks on than the little fire break that runs here. So if you head up like this and then come down, we're going to have a much better chance of seeing if he's crossed northwards into Buffelshoek and then on towards Manuleti side. Could also have come back and just gone straight over the road and into this block too. We'll just double check and see. Anyway, while we check and that's what's going on, let's send you all the way to the go with Moritz from Tswalu.
Good morning, everyone. It is a stunning morning here at Tswalu Kalahari. The clouds have sort of disappeared, and it's just a beautiful day. The sunrise is amazing. Well, the sun is not out yet, but it is going to be an epic one. And we are actually heading towards the hyena den this morning, so we're going to have a look at that. By the way, guys, my name is Moritz. Behind the camera, we've got David. We've got, not David, sorry, Craig. I'm so used to saying David. We've got Craig behind the camera, and we're heading towards the hyena den. We've got a beautiful herd of oryx over here. Some calves as well. As you can see, they're paying close attention to us now that we've stopped. When we were moving, they weren't worrying about us too much, but now that we've stopped, they've noticed that we've seen them, and they are going to head away slowly. You know, with the herbivores, they quite often just need to be that little bit more wary of the vehicles. Out here, because it's so open and wide, they normally can see us coming from far. So the personal bubble is a little larger. It's not like in the Lowveld where it's a little thicker and you come around the corner and there they are. Then they get used to having the vehicle close to them. Over here, not so much. So things like Gemsbok and Eland and all of those things, they typically do have a bit more of a larger personal bubble, which they won't allow us in. Predators, they seem to, become relaxed a lot sooner than the herbivores. But that's also just because, whenever we go out on a drive, you typically do look for the larger predators, lions and cheetahs and those types of things, so they do get a little bit more attention. Oryx you always see, it doesn't matter which direction you're going, so with that being the case, you don't necessarily see the same individual herd or the same individual male every time. So they might go sometimes weeks without having a vehicle close to them, and then it's just a matter of having to get used to the fact that there's a vehicle around them again. But yeah, our plan for this morning is to go and check up on those hyena cubs. We're going to see if they're around. I'm very hopeful that the mom is going to be there, because then they might be, or at least one of the other individuals, then they're going to be a bit more relaxed and give us some good views. So hopefully we'll get some nice shots of those little ones, being a little bit more out and about than the previous time. And then after that, we'll see what the morning has to offer. But yeah, just a stunning morning, guys. I mean, the sun has not come out yet, as I've mentioned, but look at how the little clouds that there are is just making everything beautiful. And also those mountains in the back is always just a epic one. Safari Kitty, you're absolutely right. It is a stunning scene. It's always wonderful to wake up and have this as your view in the bush. It's truly special. But yeah, guys, look at those mountains. They just add, when you think about the Kalahari, you don't think about mountains, you think about wide open spaces. So we are actually quite privileged to have the Kurana Berg mountain range in the reserve itself. Apart from those mountains, there is not any mountains for kilometers. Doesn't matter which direction you go in. I want to say hundreds of kilometers. So truly special to have this mountain range in the picture as well. And that just brings the diversity of the game that we have on Tswalu a little higher as well. You'll find the leopards concentrating their activity around there. We're able to have the Hartman's Mountain zebra and the other Birchall zebra, without them, competing too much with one another as far as mating is concerned. And so yeah, it's just incredible. Always nice also to just hear the bush waking up, see all the birds waking up, all the rock martins and the sociable weavers immediately start chatting with one another. So no, incredible morning. Hopeful that the animals will feel the same. I think they're going to, because they've been, we've had cold, wet weather now for almost 20 days. So I think a little bit of sunlight is going to just, up the mood a little bit, get those positive vibes going. They don't always understand how necessary the rain is, even though they know that rain brings life. After 20 days of, not continuous rain, but rain every day, they do get a little tired of it. And you'll find some of the animals, rather going into hiding, not permanently, but being a little bit more scarce, hiding in the bushes and trying to get away from the cold and so on. So yeah, beautiful that the sun is also coming out. Getting a little bit of heat on the face is always great. And we've been relatively lucky so far. We haven't really had warm, when I say warm, I mean hot weather. So it's going to be great to have a little bit of sunlight. But yeah, guys, we're going to move on towards that hyena den. For the meantime, we're going to send you over to Steve and Juma.
Well, welcome back to Juma, everybody. Well, we moved on from the watering hole and found some tracks of a male leopard. I do believe they do belong to Tingana, heading heading sort of east. And then it seems like they're cutting onto this road over here. The grass is very long. Can you see how long it is? To follow tracks now is going to be very tricky if they go off-road. So you have to get off the vehicle to see where they go to. And if he just turns off road quickly, gone. So the last tracks I had were just there by the car. Always at these junctions, it's nice to stop and just have a little look, see what's going on. It's much easier to do so by getting off the car, because you can get a little bit closer to the ground. And the light must always come from the opposite side. That helps you to see the angle of the track. But for now, it seems like he has just vanished. Now even now, the track is difficult to see. It's right underneath the car, so... Okay, I don't know if you can see that one, Thea. It's there. You see this one. I'm not sure if you can see. It's not very easy to see. So he's gone north along this road. So let's carry on. Let's see if we can follow that. We'll head up towards Bufasuk along this road called Gary Cutline. It's a very familiar sort of route for the Duke. I call the tracks in, and Tristan just reckon it's Tingana. He was seen here, not sure when exactly last, but I know Andrew had him a couple days ago. This is a very popular route for him. So let's carry on here, see if we can be lucky with these tracks, and send you over to Tristan, who has got some leopard tracks of his own.
Well, I hope so, Steve. I hope that the tracks lead you to wherever he may be, that you find him. As you can see, we've got tracks as well, but I'm starting to think that the tracks that we are following are for the same leopard that Steve is following, because these tracks have come all the way and they've turned, and then they've come along the boundary, and then they're now turning south towards Gallagher and the lodges, and I think where Steve found the tracks initially is near the dam. I know Tingana has been hanging around that area, but these tracks are from last night, 100%. You can see how they're over the top of the vehicle tracks. They're kind of big sort of blobs that are breaking the pattern of the tires. So that is from last night, and so I mean, maybe it's a different male. It's possible that it's a different male, but this is a way that Tingana has walked many, many times. So, you know, could be him, could be Mulawati, I suppose. We'll follow these ones and see if we get to the point where Steve is, then obviously we know it's the same tracks, but always worthwhile just to keep following the tracks until such time as you can 100% kind of confirm that those are the right ones. So we'll just go down Gallagher shortcut. We're still quite far north compared to where Steve is. In terms of our traveling time, it's, you know, fairly kind of far, you would think, but in terms of a leopard walking at night, it's really not as far as one would imagine. The distance that I am from where Steve is easily walkable for any leopard at any point during the night. So we'll just follow it for as far as we can, and let's see, maybe, just maybe it's two different males. It's possible. That's for sure. Jerome, I think for me the favorite thing about tracking is probably the sort of thrill of testing your skill against, you know, well, not against something, but it's just that that there's an element of skill that takes place, and that it's a constant learning process. And along the way, so when you're tracking, you're learning about all kinds of other things as you go. So it's not just about the footprint that you're following. I mean, obviously that tells a whole story in its own right, but as you're following these tracks, you might notice a little insect, you might see a tree that you've never seen before, or you might see that there's something in the tracks that indicates a behavior that you might not know that that particular animal does. So I think it's the learning process, as well as the fact that you know that you're trying to use a very, very kind of old school technique to find an animal that doesn't really want to be found in many respects. When we talk about something like a leopard, you know, leopards, while they obviously have to walk, they don't really want to be tracked down by things. They sometimes will kind of avoid that if they can, in terms of by going through thickets and all kinds of other stuff. So I think it's that kind of almost primal instinct, and to know where you're going and how you're doing it, and you know, following a really good tracker, so somebody that really knows what they're doing, is a seriously amazing thing to do. It's an incredible experience to have. Watching people being able to see slight little changes and subtle differences in not only the kind of substrate where they can see a track that's maybe obscured, but also in terms of maybe a blade of grass that is bending at a certain angle, or a bird that is calling in a slightly different way to its normal call that indicates that there's a predator there. I think all of those things are part of what makes tracking so great. And also there's a mystery to it, you never know if you're going to find it at the end. That is the reward, but the actual kind of journey is probably more rewarding than the actual finding of the animal in many ways. For me anyway. Maybe others feel differently, but I would imagine Steve would be in a very similar boat to what I am. Just trying to see if I can see the tracks. Gets in places can get a little bit tricky to see them. When the road is nice and kind of fluffy and soft, the tracks stand out, but when you start to get to this stuff where it gets a little bit harder after the rain, a little bit more tricky to pick up if he's still there, but they look like they've maybe cut off. I wonder if he didn't go into this block here. This, on my left-hand side, there's a few pathways, or a drainage line, in fact, that just runs straight towards Gallagher Pan. So maybe this leopard has popped its way in there and just gone. And if that is the case, then I'm almost certain that these tracks are the same ones that Steve has picked up, because it would be in very similar kind of place if they popped out to where Steve is. Definitely not on the road still, that's for sure. It's complicated by the fact that elephants have walked here too, and those big round disc-like feet squash everything in their path, so it can be a bit tricky when they walk down the road, but he looks like he's cut off. I'm pretty sure that if we go back, we'll find that the track goes into this block on the left-hand side here. Now, in terms of kind of finding a leopard in here, this is a very tricky block. It's dense, it's thick, the grass is very long in here, so you'd have to be super lucky. Either you'd kind of pick up an alarm call or see some sign of the cat on a termite mound or something like that, but I think I just saw the tracks again now. Yeah, there they are. They're still going down the road, which is a good thing. All right, we're going to keep following it and see where it goes. I'm pretty sure we're going to end up going towards where Steve is. Hopefully, kind of one of us will be able to find this cat.
How insane is that animal?
This is out of this world. Fantastic. Good, Mama.
Wow, what a way to start off.
Just such an incredible privilege to be out here. It just keeps on delivering.
There you go, there you go. Heart is pumping right now.
3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Look at this, everybody. We've got a live kill.
The croc's holding the tail. It's holding tight. Lucky wildebeest.
There's nowhere to go. This is a disaster in the making.
Something that I have never seen before in my entire life that you are now watching live.
My heart is in my mouth, everybody.
Look at this. It's gonna make it. It's going, it's going.
This is just too magical. Hi, little guys. That's great, isn't it? Look at that. Scuba Steve has got a friend.
You've got a friend in me. It couldn't be a better morning. This is just too special.
Oh my goodness, we've got a turtle.
How epic is the fact that we're coming to you live from the Chobe River? It's the most incredible feeling to be here. This is live and we're in Rwanda. This is a very, very different adventure, charged with emotion.
I did not think I would ever face my fears like this.
We can talk about the den and enjoy the sun.
Alrighty, guys, so we are back. Well, not back. We are at the hyena den site. We're going to have a look. I'm not seeing any individuals yet. but we'll just sit a little bit because we did see a troop of baboons running from this direction just now as we came in. So there's a very good possibility that they might have just ducked, and then with the baboons moving away, they'll come back out again and become a little bit more social. For those of you who haven't been here before at this particular spot, it's a spotted hyena den site. So we're quite excited to see the little cubs. Hopefully they'll show themselves to us this morning, because this would be only the second set of cubs that we have on Tswalu. The spotties are relatively new to the reserve, so always exciting when that is the case, when you see they're doing well and they're repopulating and so on, but I'm hoping to get them on camera this morning. So yeah, the den site, just as you can, in the middle of your screen there, you can see there is a little bit of a bulge in the shrubs, and that's where the den site is. I think it's an old porcupine burrow though, that the female hyena then cleaned out and is utilizing or using as her den site at the moment. We know of about 3 cubs that we think are around. I haven't seen the cubs myself, but some of the other guides have. So there's reports of 3. It might be a little bit more. But 3 is a typical size for a litter of cubs for the hyenas. They can be more. So yeah, guys, we're going to sit here for a little bit, see if they come out, see if they are more. But for the meantime, we're going to send you over to Steve with some elephants.
Welcome back to Djuma, everybody, where our elephants are busy smelling. You see how they're smelling the ground there? A leopard has walked directly on this track. Elephants have got an amazing ability to pick up residual smell of animals on the ground, even hours past. So by the sign of the tracks, it seems as if this leopard walked here sometime last night, because there were other activity of other animals on top, such as genet and white-tailed mongoose. Doesn't mean it was 20 minutes ago or so, which means 12 hours ago, maybe 10 hours ago, a leopard walked here, and the elephants are still able to pick up their smell, which I think is phenomenal. Okay, so that's just 2 youngsters. Seems like young bulls. Probably they might be on their own, or they might be following a larger herd. Haven't seen any other elephant tracks in the area, but you see how they've just disappeared in the bush there. Just goes to show how thick and dense the vegetation is now. If elephants can vanish, you can imagine where our leopards are going to. It's okay. Our objective this morning is to follow up on birds and to see what's going on the reserve. And if we do find a leopard, it will be wonderful to be able to show them to you. Elephants, though, to start. The first animals on Djuma. Elephants. Well, I do believe that there's a strong elephant presence with me, so very excited to find elephants. Let's try and move up for you, see if we can find them. And while we do that, we'll send you back over to Tristan, see if he's having any luck with his leopard tracks.
Good luck, Steve. Hopefully your elephants will come back, or at least give you another chance to see them. We are sitting with animals that you can see are also disappearing in some respect. It just shows you how long the grass is at the moment, is that these nyalas, the young ones particularly, are almost kind of up to their eyeballs in grass. And as Steve was alluding to, when you get smaller animals and more kind of stealthy creatures like a leopard, they can get in this grass and you'll have zero idea that they're there. If they are down, if they're walking, maybe you'll get them, particularly if their tail's up. But otherwise, if they're sleeping and they're flat in grass like this, you're going to have a real struggle on our hands in order to be able to spot them easily. It's not to say that we won't find them, but it's just that it's going to be a lot harder compared to the sort of winter months where life is easy. But you can see a little one is nursing from mom.
So you'll find that they stimulate the flow of milk by kind of hitting their mother's teats, and then they start to drink from there. Now this little one is still drinking quite late. It's already quite a large baby. You see how alert they are though. I was just watching the mom now. You see how her ears are pointing, and she's really kind of watching, making sure that there isn't something around. When the little one is feeding like this, it's obviously at a time where they can be quite compromised, because the baby's not really paying attention. Mom is sort of being nudged. There's a bit of noise. There's sort of movement. So she has to be very, very, very careful when she's feeding the little one to make sure that there isn't some sort of predator sneaking up on them, particularly at this time of the year. So you're going to find those ears are going to move a lot, and if she hears anything, they're going to just basically sort of zone in on exactly where that noise has come from, and they'll just lock there for a little bit, and they'll listen and wait. And the reason why her head was turned just now is there's just up the road is there's a few impala males that are up on kind of milling about, and I wonder if one of them wasn't moving, and that's why she sort of was so focused kind of to the western side up to where they are. But you wouldn't believe me, there's a third nyala here as well that you cannot see at all. It's to the left of these guys, behind a little thicket there. So where you see that round leaf teak bush, that kind of green bush that's sticking through, there's another nyala that's behind there. So everything is going to have an ability to hide, but also be compromised in that they're not going to be able to see things coming in their own right. So it'll be a good time of the year for leopards particularly. This is kind of perfect conditions for them, thick grass, but on the sort of counter side of that is that it's easy for them too to be ambushed by things like lions, etc., in grass like this. So everybody's got to be a little bit more aware. And that's why you'll find a lot of the cats, particularly if you look at the tracks that we're seeing this morning, the cat is walking on the road mostly, and that's for two reasons, really. One is the safety aspect of it. It doesn't have to worry nearly as much by walking on the road that it's going to be ambushed. But the second thing is that the grass at this length is a hive for insect activity. You're going to have all kinds of ticks and things spread through this. And so a cat walking through the grass is going to be quite uncomfortable for them. They're going to pick up a lot of parasites. There's grass seeds that are going to go in the eyes. So you'll find that most animals are going to be utilizing the roads a lot more to navigate. And then they kind of only go off the roads when they're either hunting, feeding, or potentially stalking. Or if there's maybe another predator that's around that will cause them to move. But for the most part, they'll try and stick around. And you can see just like that, they're gone. But I'm 900% sure now that the tracks that we were following are the same ones that Steve has got. They've come to Gallagher Pan, and then from where that Steve found them is maybe 200 meters, 300 meters. So we're not going to follow those any further. We'll leave Steve to it. Otherwise, we're going to just end up kind of cutting each other off in places. So I'll kind of move on and see what else I can go and find. It was worth just following because you never know. We've got such a high density of leopards at the moment in this area that you can't always be sure that you're on the same tracks. So it's worth just following them. Also, what could have happened is Steve might have had the older tracks and he looped, and I had the fresher ones. But it looks far more likely that the tracks that I've got are the ones that Steve is now on at the moment. So yeah, like I say, we'll just turn off and go back to our sort of western side, see if there's any sign of maybe Shidulu that side or various others that mill about in that area. Failing all of that, I don't know, we'll just bumble about and see. It's so pretty at the moment, and obviously being away for a little bit, it's always nice just to go scout around and see how everything's changed and how everything has developed over the course of the month. So there's just a francolin that's making a bit of noise on my right here. Stop now. So often with francolins, they have a kind of particular sound when they get disturbed. They sort of pop out, and it's this kind of screeching that takes place. And then if it's a predator like something like a leopard,
you'll find they'll sit on a branch and then they'll just keep making a noise at the leopard for a while they still can see it. So when you hear the initial kind of explosion out of the bush, it could be from us as a vehicle, but also could be something else. And so it's always good just to stop, double check and listen a little bit. If you start to hear them carrying on, then you know that there's some sort of predator there. And it's not always a leopard. I mean, it can be something like a genet, a civet, could even be a snake that causes it, but there's definitely that kind of constant sort of calling to indicate that there's something there, and they're just obviously warning everybody that they found something. But this one has gone quiet, so it's most certainly not anything to worry about, that's for sure. This leopard walked through here, you can see it went straight towards where Steve is, or was, I say. It smells like leopard as well. Missed that smell. All right, I'm going to carry on, see what else we can find. In the meantime, let's send you back to Tswalu Kalahari.
Alrighty guys, so yeah, we've moved around to just a little bit further away, and on the other side of the den site, you can see the mouth of one of the burrows now quite easily. Still no activity. However, I do think the baboons moving by could have pushed them back into the burrow, and they're just going to take some time to warm up to us. So we're going to remain here. It's just like waiting for the meerkats sometimes. And then have a look. You can actually see there in the middle of your screen, but on the right hand side, just above the burrow, you can see an old carcass that was dragged back this way. I doubt that the cubs will already be feeding steadily on meat, but they might be nibbling here and there, just, get a taste for it. That might have been more for the mom to have like a stash, just for if she's not in the mood to go out every evening to look for food or so. So yeah, looks like from what I've heard, Craig says he heard they said it was a kudu carcass, so very possible, maybe a female, not a very big chest cavity and so on. But it's common for the hyenas to bring back food back to the den site, whether it be for the cubs when they're a little older, or for the other individuals. The rest of the clan of these, or the previous cubs of this female or so, will always remember that she has a big job to do at the moment. So when they've got leftovers, they'll just bring it back for her. So at a very well-established den site, you'll quite often find quite a bit of bones lying around. And typically those bones that's lying around is not going to be the ones that they break open or crack open to get to the bone marrow. It's going to be more the thicker stuff, like, let's say, a giraffe's leg, or so. More just a chew toy by that point. But yeah, patience is key at the moment. So hopefully we'll get a visual of either the cubs or the female or so, not too long from now. It is a cold-ish breeze that's blowing, so it could also be that it's just keeping them inside the burrow for a bit longer. And now with the sun coming out, it might heat up a little bit. Well, not might, it's definitely going to heat up a little bit. So we're going to go for now, guys. We're going to wait here and see what happens. If there's something that pops out, we're definitely going to show you, but for the meantime, we're going to go back to Steve, okay?
Well, thanks, Mo. Welcome back to Djuma, everybody, where we found a wonderful track in the sand. Obviously, we are still trying to follow up this male leopard that's come north. It seemed like he came north into Buvusuk. We lost those elephants. They vanished, but I'm just going to show you. There's a couple of toes here. You can see this toe here, this toe over here, this toe over here. There's another toe there, and there's another one over there. Many people will confuse this and just look at those two over there and think a warthog or maybe a kudu. Some people might even say a waterbuck, but there's an extra toe and an extra toe, and it's actually heading in this direction. Not sure if you can see it very clearly, but I've got a picture in my book to show you over here what I'm showing you on the floor. And here is the track on the ground. Can you see it there? Here's the one toe that I showed on the side. There's the two together that many people confuse and think warthog or kudu sometimes. And then that other telltale little toe there and over there. And if we go just over to the right-hand side, you'll see the bottom of the foot. These are all the toes of the aardvark. It's aardvark, by the way. And so what you're seeing is the three toes are always very easily seen. They lay those down on the ground. But then what you don't always see is these two on the right and the left. You don't actually see the toe, but you'll just see the nails in the ground, which is what we're seeing over here. And that's very easy to see in the drawing that we have just over here on the right. 9 to 11 centimeters. You see those two little toes that are on the side, and then always the front foot at the front there, which is always in front. And if I go back to the track on the ground, you'll be able to see that here is the front foot over there. It's not very easy to see the front foot, but the back one is very, very good. And what's always very important to do is to do a little bit of a measurement. This knife of mine is 10 centimeters, and the track is just a little bit bigger. So that is a big 10 and a half odd centimeter track of an aardvark, and they ran across the road here. Very exciting. I've never seen an aardvark in Djuma. I've seen a few in the Kruger Park, but not like the guys over in Tswalu who get to see them very regularly. I was talking to David last night, Davy, the cameraman, and he said that he was really disappointed because since he's Mr. Tswalu, if he was there 5 years ago, he would have seen more aardvark, like 9 a day. He was only seeing 4 a day. I was like, oh, only 4 a day. Blessings, eh? Blessings indeed. So tracks are a very, very cool and passive way to know what's going on in the world, because they show you who's been moving around. Animals aren't sneaky like that. They're not going to hide their track on the ground. They leave tracks. And so tracks are a very passive way of identifying animals that might be occurring in an area. So I hope that was very clear and easy to see. Aardvark. Very unusual feat. Strange toes, but then those nails are obviously designed for digging. Very, very good at digging. They break open the concrete like termite mounds looking for their favorite food. We'd try digging into a termite mound with a shovel, we would struggle. In a matter of moments. Okay, so we're going to check along this road and see if popped up of the year in front of us. And to frame him up to somebody else.
Well, we are still bumbling about, just heading back to kind of where we started, really, in the hope that we can go and find something else. Like I say, I've left Steve with and as much as it's always good to help one another with these things, sometimes it can get in each other's way, and especially where those tracks are heading, they look like they're heading into Buffelshoek, which means only one of us can go that side anyway, so I'd rather let Steve have the chance. His vehicle also does better on Buffelshoek than this one does, so it just makes more sense in many respects, that's for sure. And well, we'll just have to go and find something else to look at. Hopefully there'll be some tracks on the western side for Tswalu or the likes. I actually was recently staying at Simambili, well, at a lodge close to Simambili, just close to New Year's, and it was amazing to see how much Tswalu was coming this way. She was seen, I think, of the 4 days that we were there, she was seen crossing into Djuma 3 of the
I'm not good with waiting. So, alright guys, yeah, just beautiful setting. We're talking about it just now. There's some clouds pulling over the mountain. We'll show you just now. For the time being, the clan hasn't come out, or the cubs, or the either the cubs or the female hasn't come out. But we're gonna see there. When you look closely, you can actually see. I don't think we can see the burrow just yet, but you can see where the burrow mouth goes in. It does seem like it's an old porcupine burrow, and it must have collapsed at some point. You can see that steep bank on the one side, on the left-hand side, and they must have then cleared it out and made a home for themselves. But yeah, just pretty cool. We have quite a few wattled starlings that's busy nesting in the area. I'm pretty sure you can hear them at the moment. They are very loud currently, but if we look just over there, you can see all of them flying and so on. And so the reason why they are so upset is there's actually a booted eagle sitting in one of the trees. We're going to show you. It's difficult to see at the moment because of the light, but there you can just about make it out in the middle of the screen there. See, so they're quite upset about that at the moment. Also, it is morning, so they're all waking up, so everyone's just in a chirpy mood. But yeah, guys, we're gonna stick here with the den at the moment, and with this eagle. Maybe he tries something, or maybe the hyenas come out or so. But for the meantime, we're gonna send you somewhere else, okay?
Good morning, everyone. I'm not going to bother with introducing myself just yet, because we have got a pack of wild dogs that we've been trying to show you since yesterday morning. Now, you are here at Pridelands, but we'll get to that in just a minute in case we lose visual of these two wild dogs. Now, you can see the behavior is very, very interesting at the moment, because they've got their ears flat and they have dropped their heads and their shoulders. And this is wild dogs in hunting mode. They are trying to creep up onto some unsuspecting prey, which I haven't got a clue what it is. But because we're here at zebra clearings, I'm going to imagine that it's probably something like a herd of impala, although there's always zebra and wildebeest that move around in this area. Now, there's a total of 7 dogs in this pack. These 2 are the adults, and then the 5 that we saw yesterday looked like youngsters. So they're not coming with them, as they're not really successful hunters just yet. How cool is this, though? It's always really awesome to see wild dogs using a technique like almost stalking to try and creep closer to their prey, which is epic, because you normally just see flashes of the brown, white and black as they're sprinting along trying to chase down their prey. How cool is that? While they move around, I thought they were going to disappear quite quickly. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Gert. And like I said, we are sitting here at Pridelands Conservancy, which is part of Tswalu Game Reserve and the Greater Kruger National Park. Now, one of the dogs you would have noticed has a collar around it. And I'm just going to move out of your way quickly. Now, he's a big male. He's actually beautiful. I'm not sure which dog it is. I'm not familiar with the dogs of sort of Tswalu Game Reserve, and I have not seen wild dogs for months, in fact, so it is really, really nice to have them back on the property, and not just for one day, but like I said, they arrived sort of not yesterday afternoon, but the afternoon before that. They picked up speed, and then they were here this morning. We had a great sighting of them being chased around by elephants. And now again this morning. They even crossed out of our traverse. I wonder if they're trying to flush out something like a scrub hare, maybe, that could be seeking refuge under a bush or all these fallen trees. Remember, scrub hares are predominantly nocturnal, or they come out just as the sun has set and typically just go to bed just as at first light. And they haven't been successful with chasing get something small to start our morning with. They're just creeping around quite carefully. I thought that there might have been a herd of impala just on the edge of the plains out of our sight. But that is such an epic sight to see. Okay, we're going to have to do some repositioning. So we're just going to drive forward towards all those logs. Although I see one dog coming out now. I don't know where the puppies are. They must just be over here. Although when you see them at first, when you first see them, they don't really look like puppies because they grow so quickly. But they must be about 6 or 7 months old now, maybe even a little bit older than that. But we're going to keep trying to keep up with these dogs, and hopefully they'll chase something and catch it.
Well done, Taylor. Wild dogs. We had tracks this morning. It was quite a nice test. Just, by the way, we found those male leopard tracks again, heading back towards sort of the east, towards Buffelshoek boundary, maybe back towards Buffelshoek Dam. It was quite a nice test this morning when we came out, Tristan and myself came out and I saw some hyena tracks. We always have hyena tracks around camp, and then we had these tracks. I was like, those look like wild dogs. It's nice to see the difference. They're quite similar. If you're not looking closely, you can actually get confused. But the way that they walk, wild dog will step with the right foot and the back foot in the same line, whereas hyena do this crossover angular step. And also the wild dog tracks are a little more squashed. Don't have the same sort of difference in the front versus the back. So let me just show you quickly on the map where we are. This is Buffelshoek up here. We had the tracks from Djuma Dam, and they came all the way up Garikatline. We sort of lost them on this road here, but we've picked them up.
Male line tracks are called in on.
Sorry about that. And we're here now on this major road that's sort of heading back down towards Buffelshoek boundary in a way. So here's Buffelshoek Dam. So we're going to follow this for a little while and see if we can come up with it. Because he seems to be doing a large sort of roundabout loop, because it seems as if Tristan was following the same male. And this time of year, these animals will move lots and lots for their territories. It's always nice to be able to see this map and the extent of the traverse that we're able to move. But let's carry on, see if we can pick up on any more activity of this male.
Alrighty guys, so you can see the booted eagle sitting just there on the side of the tree. He's sitting relatively still. There's not much happening with him at the moment, but the wattled starlings are definitely not happy about him being so close to all of their nests. You can actually see the little nests. If you look underneath the eagle, you can see those little brown wooden nests that they've built. And so I'm not 100% convinced that there's going to be chicks in there at the moment, but regardless, you know, an eagle close to a nest is never a good idea for the smaller birds, so they'll definitely prefer if he wasn't around. So what they're doing at the moment is called mobbing. They're not flying around him at the moment. There we go, it worked. They're trying to irritate him so much that he eventually moves away. He actually went to another nest. Now he's sitting on top of the nest, so I don't know if possibly there was some movement that he spotted and he might have gone there, or these birds in this tree that he was sitting in just screamed loud enough in his ears that he decided he's not going to be part of this anymore. We'll have to see how this pans out. He is a little difficult to spot now, but I mean, luckily you can see the movement and you can see the bird itself. I'm not seeing any strange activity though. He is looking to, it seems like he's looking into the nest or around the nest to see what's going on there. But yeah, just amazing to see these interactions, you know, between different species, regardless of whether it's between the booted eagle and the wattled starlings, or whether it's between a lion and a hyena. Also, always nice to have two species interacting with one another. It just makes it so much more special. To see the individual animal by itself is always great, but to see that interaction or that action that happens between two species clashing or, just socializing or so on is always amazing. We are still sitting at the hyena den. There's no activity at the moment, so we're not even going to go towards it. I do think maybe the mom has not returned yet or so. Cenax to that's going to be it's not going to be much. It's going to have to be, if there is something that predates on a booted eagle, it's going to however highly unlikely. I'd say the only predator that you'll really find going for it is maybe a large snake, like an African rock python or something similar to that. But with them being, actually top of their food chain, there's not really going to be much that predates on them. Scavenged, that's another story. They'll definitely get scavenged upon by multiple different species. So vultures will eat them when they die. Hyenas, jackals, other scavenging birds like battalier eagles, or what they call it nowadays, the short-tailed eagle. All of those types of species will definitely scavenge on it. Predating on it, it has to be something larger than it. If it is a raptor, like I said, like a martial eagle or so, but more likely to be an African rock python, if there is anything predating on it. It's just like a lion. There's not many predators that will predate on it, but if they die, the hyenas will eat them and those types of things. So we're very quickly going over to Pridelands.
We are on a main road with lots of power lines. We always try and avoid them for you, but it seems as though we're not going to be able to this morning. So we've got quite a funny scene that's playing out. This is my favorite wildebeest on Pridelands. He lives on zebra clearing. He's quite comical now. He's charged out and he actually chased the wild dogs. That's one of the puppies. But I am a bit concerned because I've only counted 6 dogs this morning. So it looks like one of the puppies have gone missing in the night, but let's drive up and keep up with them. So I'm not sure what has happened. We have already seen a male lion this morning, a young male lion. There was quite a bit of commotion. There are plenty of hyena around here, and then of course lots of leopards we don't necessarily always see. So who knows what could have happened to one of the little puppies. Shoo! That impala lamb. Oh, goodness, okay, I'm sitting still, dogs. They're chasing all the impala left, right, and centre. They've made a hard turn from all the way up there. They've gone right around us. They're going to catch it. I think they're definitely going to catch it. Looks like a young impala that they've now separated. You can see more of the puppies. So the 4 that I was telling you about. At first glance, like I said, they don't really look quite young, but they are substantially smaller and definitely inexperienced, which is why the 2 adults are not wanting them to sort of chase with them. Now, something else that's interesting is that they haven't seen an adult female. There's 2 big males. One with a collar, and the other male's got a slit in one of his ears. And I think we have seen this pack before. So I'm not sure where the alpha female is. It's very interesting. But even those 2 individuals that we saw sort of stalking, trying to flush out some smaller prey, that was definitely the 2 boys. Unfortunately, wild dogs do take a beating, especially with other predators around. Oh, I'm going to just move out of your way. Oh, here we go. You can see some excitement. Oh, the impala. Oh, there's an impala lamb. That was a tiny impala lamb. Oh, no. They're going to catch this one. I don't think this one is going to stand a chance. Or maybe what they've done is they've separated this huge herd of impala that live around here on zebra clearings, and they're just chasing out the lambs because they're incredibly inexperienced. Now, if that was an adult, if that was a... So Gert is telling me to jump on this road. Mr. Wildebeest, move out of the way. Go protect your friends. He plays with the impala lamb. So what they're doing is they're chasing out all the youngsters, but those young puppies you saw were terrified to have a little impala running towards them. They don't know what to do. So Sinak, you asked a question about what is the population like of wild dogs here. It varies, but we'll chat about that a little bit more. I'm going to try and keep up with the dogs and see if they caught an impala.
Right, well, Taylor sounds like she's having a wonderful morning. Unfortunately, our morning not quite as productive. We keep tracking things into places we can't go, which is not ideal. So we had tracks for, I think it's an Avoca, it must be, it's a male lion walking north into the Manuleti, which is not great. And then I had tracks for a male leopard, but they look like they've turned into Arethusa off of Triple M, which is also not ideal. So it's not quite going our way as yet, but that's okay. It's always on the first morning. I find it's a good thing just to kind of figure out what's been going on, where things have been moving, and sort of make a little picture of what's happening. And good to have a little bit of kind of difficulty to start with, and then makes you appreciate things when it happens. But I'm sure we'll find something along the way. It's starting to get warm now, so I would imagine animals will slowly start to settle down. They're not going to be as active this morning. It was fairly cool to start with and a fair amount of clouds, so you would have expected that they would have been still quite active until quite late this morning. But now as the sun is starting to kind of burn through the clouds, it's starting to get a lot hotter. Yes, rattling testiculars, I hear you. I'm sorry if we are disturbing you. It makes so much noise, these rattling testiculars, when you come anywhere near them. They can be both a blessing and a curse, because obviously they can indicate something's around, but at the same time they make an awful lot of noise. It's one of the first bird calls you'll ever learn out here, because of how much you kind of hear them, particularly if you're walking around. Then they just literally are incessant. Everywhere you go they shout at you as you kind of make your approach. Now, check something here quickly. I'm pretty sure this is the same leopard that we had to start our morning. Yeah, this truck goes there. Pretty sure this is the same cat who has had an absolute field day in terms of walking. It's gone everywhere, from here to basically the other side of Djuma, which is crazy. Big boy, they wander off regularly, so what we have is quite an open system. So Djuma is part of a greater ecosystem that is 2.2 million hectares. Now, what that means is that you're going to have multiple leopards within that area. And so while Djuma, for us, has boundaries, the animals themselves don't recognize those same boundaries. Their boundaries are defined by competition with others. And so while you have, let's say, here at Djuma, we talk about a territorial male leopard, but we could have 3 territorial male leopards, and each of the corners are kind of where their territories lie. So there's a number of different leopards, and yes, they move off quite regularly. We know that a number of them are in and out all the time. In fact, on Djuma itself, we don't have a single leopard that only stays on Djuma. Every single one of them is up, down, round, off, on, constantly. And so that's why a lot of the time you'll find in the early mornings is that we actually check boundaries a lot of the time. And the reason for that is that if you're going to be tracking and you're going to be investing time into following an animal, you kind of want the guarantee in your mind that this animal is not going to be, in a place that you can't get to it. And so generally just doing a nice little loop around, and then you can see, okay, tracks are coming in or tracks are going out. Then you can kind of get a better picture of what's going on within Djuma itself. The complication comes in that we have traversing over different areas, so it's not just Djuma that we use. And so even though we might check the Djuma boundaries, sometimes things can go into Biffel's Hook, like where the tracks that Steve is following, they went in that way. Sometimes they can go into kind of Simambili, Chitwa, Torchwood. So we have various different areas that we can use. But yeah, the leopards are constantly in and out, much like most animals. This area would be quite small for a single animal to kind of live in. I mean, it's possible that a leopard could survive solely just on Djuma. I suppose it's big enough for that, but it's just very seldom will you ever see a leopard kind of staying in one place, and that's just due to other leopards and pressure and various other things. It's most definitely the same cat that's walked here. I mean, the tracks are going right to where we first saw them this morning. So he's had an absolute ball. I'm pretty sure it's Tingana, given the route that he's walked. Although Mulawati these days is also cruising around all over the place. So we're not going to follow those. Those are not going to be a worthwhile endeavor for us, because at the end of the day, we're just going to end up back where we started. So I don't really want to do that. We're going to go and check out the southern parts. We're going to head towards kind of Treehouse, Twin Dams, go do a bit of birding, see what's around there, and hopefully we'll pick up some tracks as well along the way. What we also need to do, talking about picking things up, is that this is an access road, and so there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down this road, which means that unfortunately every now and then things are dropped in the bush, and so we just need to pick it up because we don't want plastic lying in the bush at all. So we'll just pick that up quickly. It's always a thing that you do wherever you go, is try and keep this area as tidy as possible. Between things like monkeys and hyenas, it does sometimes happen that various bits of debris, or should we say human waste, is sometimes in the bush, and so if we all just pick it up, then it disappears pretty quickly and we don't have to worry about it anymore. All right. Just trying to think which road I'm going to take. I think I'll just take Zoe straight southwards towards Treehouse, and that's going to work. Hopefully we'll pick up something on that road. All right, sounds like there's lots of things happening at Prideland, so let's quickly send you across there.
Oh my goodness, it's like being on safari with my old friends again, having Steve and Tristan back in the bush. So we managed to relocate on the wild dogs after there was much panic from the impala side. And I suppose the wild dog puppies too. They had absolutely no clue as to what was going on and what they were supposed to do. But they've settled down now. We're just keeping our distance. And they're laying up in the road, and just behind them there's a puddle of water. So they had a quick drink. It doesn't look like they were successful in catching anything. That impala was so lucky, because if that was one of the adults that was on the road where the youngsters were just sort of waiting, they would have definitely caught it. But inexperience, unfortunately, is not on the side of the wild dogs this morning. So sorry, Sinek, I'm going to go back to your question about what is the population of wild dogs like here at Pridelands. When it's good, it's amazing. I suppose it's a bit like the Savi Sand. You know, you'll see dogs for a few days. There you see a few more. But because where Pridelands is situated, we're situated sort of just outside Hoedspruit. If you pull up Google Maps and you have a look where Hoedspruit is, we're literally right on the border of town, which is really amazing to see that, once wilderness areas that were turned into farms are being turned right back into wilderness areas. So sometimes the wild dogs will go into town It's not an uncommon thing to see on the Air Force Base Road or in some of the wildlife estates where people live. So the dog population is quite good. I mean, I remember last year seeing a pack of over 20 at one point, and then we also did see a couple of times on the show. I actually think it could be the same pack, but I'm not sure. I just remember that dog, that one adult male with a split in his ear. You're going to see him pop out now. He's running past us at the moment. It might be a bit difficult. There he goes. You just see him darting through the grass. Hopefully they just pause in that spot. The rest of the dogs are on their way. I feel like I have a photo of him, but I just remember this, if it is the same pack, but I'm sure that there are a few of you who follow the show and have folders saved with all these images, and you can do a quick comparison for me. I don't even think we got an ID on the specific pack, but there's all the wild dogs in Paluli, then the dogs from Kalahari could be coming in. So they're here. It's just that we maybe don't see them all the time. And remember, wild dogs move such huge distances that it's impossible to have a resident pack of dogs. Unless they're denning, unless it's, of course, breeding season, and then they will have a much smaller sort of home range. But right now, they're just going wherever they can. And it's very exciting to see them. So that's why we left our young male lion that we had a quick visual of, so that we could go and find and show you wild dogs, because who doesn't love wild dogs? I do hope they catch something, even if it is something small like an impala lamb. It's not much, those mouths, but it's something, and it might keep them here a little bit longer. But we're going to play catch up again. Maybe they go down to Ndlovu Dam and have a drink, but we need to just do a big loop around to see if we can catch up with the dogs.
Do you dream of traveling to a far-flung wilderness location where life continues as normal? A place where you can escape to nature and breathe. If you become a Wild Earth explorer, then this could soon become a reality. Subscribe today and stand a chance to win regular travel prizes. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature. For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique Wild Earth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient quartzites Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with Wild Earth and, of course, meet the meerkats. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply. The new year has arrived, and with it comes all kinds of other new beginnings. From hyena cubs to meerkat pups, the bush is full of new life. If you want to find out more, then sign up to be an explorer and join our New Beginnings Fireside Chat. Tristan and Steve will be looking at what's new here in the wilderness as we enter 2021. Join them on the 17th of January, straight after the Sunset Safari.
Alrighty guys, so we've made the call that we don't think there's any adult hyenas at the den site, so we think that possibly after around late evening when they were left last night by someone else, they might have gone out to look for food and they just haven't returned yet. So we decided to leave the den. You know, it doesn't make sense to just sit there the whole day and nothing happens. So we are on our way now to go and have a look if we can't find possibly those 2 male cheetahs that we were looking for yesterday or so. One of the guys actually found some fresh tracks, so we're heading that way to see if we can't locate on them this morning. Hopefully they'll be a little bit easier to find today. But yeah, I mean, look at how the weather has changed in a matter of I want to say 5 minutes. It's gone from beautifully sunny to cloudy and cold. However, it is a misty cloud, so that's typically an indication of the weather clearing up, and it should be sunny soon. I don't think this is going to remain cloudy for very long. So with that being the case, I do think we're going to have a nice, warm, sunny day not too long from now, which will be great. Craig and I are actually freezing on the vehicle at the moment. So we are hoping for a little bit of sunlight. When I walked out of the house this morning, I saw the sun starting to come out and no clouds and so on, and I actually didn't put on my usual warm clothes for the drive, so it surprised me quite a bit. But yeah, we're heading towards where those tracks were found, try and follow up on those males. But as you know, this is the bush, so we might bump into anything else. Like yesterday with those bat-eared foxes, that was epic. And then later on the oryx and so on, so we'll see what the bush has to offer on our way to those tracks. And then hopefully also soon we'll be able to relocate on those male cheetahs and be able to, you know, have a good sightings with them. So yeah, guys, we're going to head towards where those tracks were found. If we do find something, we'll let you know, but for the meantime, we're going to send you over to Steve.
Well, you don't know what to find. I found the male leopard tracks, went forward, went back, and have gone into the vegetation. And we spoke earlier about how wet it is. Now, that is my shoe from walking 100 meters into the vegetation. Is wet, completely saturated. So our cats are definitely trying to avoid going off-road, but it looks like he's gone into the block heading south over there. So we're just going to come around onto another road and see if we can see where he's possibly come out. But walking along and then turning back, there was a smell, there was a sound. It's obviously something of interest. I saw a point there where he was crouched down and it looked like he jumped, but I wasn't able to find anything. Wasn't able to find any. Oh, we've got some sandgrouse in the road. Some double-banded sandgrouse right in the front here. You can hear it. African grey hornbill in the background. There's the sandgrouse. Very nice birds to see because they're extremely camouflaged. When I was last here, back in October, they had just started breeding. And so you'd often find the adults flying away, and then you wouldn't be able to find the chicks, who are extremely well designed to just lie flat and blend in with the vegetation. But there we go. When they move, they're very visual, or very visible. And there's the Cape turtle dove, or the ring-necked dove in front. Now, the two of them have got quite similar tracks, but if you look at the way the sandgrouse are moving, they shuffle their feet. Can you see how it's a very quick shuffle? Whereas the dove walks with a little bit longer gait, slightly longer. But it is possible to confuse the two. Both of them moving around, feeding on vegetation on the floor. Nice to see the size comparison, isn't it? Oh, that was quite quick. It's my imitation of the double-banded sandgrouse call. We play volleyball. Because they are sandgrouse, they play volleyball in the sand, of course. It makes it quite easy to remember the name. It's my rendition. It's obviously not perfect. that it's also the birds that are sticking to the roads for feeding, seeds being dropped into the road from the vegetation on the side. It's a time of plenty. Lots of food around. All the birds have been breeding. Many birds could already even be into their second brood, maybe even their third, depending on the species and the turnaround time. Don't forget we are live, everybody. We'd love to hear from you. Questions and comments are most welcome. #WildEarth. So what birds, mainly birds would be predators on sandgrass, but then again, of course, your sort of animals on the ground, such as caracal, serval, a leopard would also go for one, domestic, or should I say a African wildcat. So all birds of prey are predatory for these small ground nesting birds. So francolins and spurfowl and sandgrass are very well hunted by goshawks, African hawk eagle, tawny eagle. But these guys are so well camouflaged, and if they spot anything from above, they just go flat on the ground. It becomes very difficult to see them. There are multitudes of predators, snakes of course as well. Monitor lizards for the eggs, snakes mainly for the eggs, I suppose. All your smaller cipiters, goshawks, sparrowhawks. Pearl-spotted owlet would hunt. The largest bird they hunt are doves. Pete, that's a good question. I'll double check. Probably in the region of 3 or 4 eggs, the sandgrass lay. I'll double check every time. It might even only be 2, because I've seen a couple of nests. I've never actually found a nest itself with the eggs. I've found 2 or 3 times in my life the chicks, and I've only ever seen 2. So I wonder if they're limited. But being a ground nesting bird doesn't mean that they limit their number of eggs. Normally birds in a nest in a tree limit their number of eggs because of the altricial nature, the feeding that they need to acquire. But just double checking now, it is indeed 2 to 3 eggs laid in just a shallow scrape in the ground. So I've only ever seen 2 chicks, maybe even 3 chicks. Never seen more. But normally with your birds that lay eggs on the ground, they can often lay more eggs because those eggs all hatch at the same time and they're able to follow the parents around, not requiring any parental care. The sandgrass are quite interesting in that regard, the double-banded sandgrass, because the males actually are able to bring water back to the chicks in the nest. So water is a massive limiting factor for many birds, and hence why many birds have to feed their chicks insects. Even if they are a seed-eating bird, they have to feed them insects so as to get water into the diet. So we've got 2 birds here that are specialized in that regard, the sandgrass and doves, or pigeons. Doves and pigeons are able to produce pigeon milk, which is produced in the crop, and they're actually able to feed their chicks sort of that milk from right in the beginning. But they're only able to produce 2 eggs because of the need to produce milk for them. Other birds can catch as many insects as they want to bring back to the nest, and then you can obviously have slightly larger clutches. But the sandgrass, the males in the afternoons will fly to water, the females as well, but the males characteristically will fill their chest feathers with water, flying back to the nest where the chicks are waiting, and the chicks will actually glean or drink the water directly from Dad's chest, which is a very interesting and very well adapted sort of behavior. I don't know of any other bird that's able to bring water back to the nest like the sandgrass do, and it thus enables them to survive in areas or breed in areas further away from water where there's potentially less predators or predation. Not very easy to see in the light, but the male versus female, quite easy to see. Linda, of course, eggs are always at risk on the ground of being trampled or driven on, I suppose. It's very important to try and discern where you're driving, but it is tricky sometimes. But they will do a shallow scrape that you won't even see it. It'll be almost nearly impossible to see the eggs on the ground. So, of course, there is sort of small amounts of invasion in these environments with off-road driving. So off-road driving does need to be well monitored. Multitudes of birds nest on the ground. Very, very well camouflaged. But these guys seem to have been finished their breeding. It's possible they will breed again. They had just hatched when I was last here. Yeah, so they're winter breeders, the sandgrouse, April to October mainly. Breed at a time when others aren't breeding. So the chicks I saw in October must have been the last clutch of the year. They do look very relaxed, don't they? I think they've just decided to enjoy a little bit of the sunshine there. You can actually see the male. He's the one on the right. He's having a little chirpy chirp there. The one on the right, he's got that little sort of thing on the top of his beak. Not easy to see right now. He's a lot more colourful than the female. So as with most ground nesting birds, they will lay their eggs, all of them, before incubating. Now what that leads to is all the eggs hatching at the same time. So normally about a day or 24-hour period, they lay an egg and then move away and come back and lay another egg a full day later. And once the clutch is completed, the individuals will start to incubate. Female doing most of the evening shift. Let's quickly go over to Bryden's.
So we've had some interesting thoughts since you last were with us. We just sort of followed the dogs around and they keep looping back towards zebra clearings. Now, the team that actually found the wild dogs this morning were on a bushwalk. They picked up on their fresh tracks, tracks is what I meant to say. Not too far from the road that runs down towards the eco training camp, and then he spotted them from a distance. Now, one of the other instructors said that he did count 7 dogs initially this morning, and we drove up to see if we could find them, to see if we could relocate them, but we didn't have any luck, sort of just moseying around. And then another instructor sat down on zebra clearings, just sort of waiting to see if they came back down. So he got the first view of them, and he only counted 6 dogs. So one of the puppies has to have gone missing now this morning, somewhere around here, and the 2 males keep coming around and sort of looking in the drainage lines, almost like now they're not trying to flush out something, but like they're looking for another pack member. What is surprising me, as all the puppies ran in, look how excited they are because they're just keeping their distance, is that they haven't tried to call for it. Obviously, wild dogs can be quite vocal, and it'll be the most effective way to relocate a pack member is by doing, of course, that very eerie whooping sound that a wild dog does. I can't do the call very well, but I think Tristan is quite well versed in it, so perhaps he can do it for you. Or maybe he even has the call on his phone and he can play it for you. I'm not going to do something like that now, because with those big satellite dish-like ears, that's definitely going to cause quite a stir. And they're running back towards us. There is just a small little pan just up ahead. Maybe they'll come and have a drink. Off the 2 of them go again. At least the puppies are in tow this time. Yes, there we go. One splashing right into the water. Oh, sitting in, as they normally do. Just a quick dip to keep nice and cool. They definitely must overheat with that thick coat and with all the running around that they've done. such a lovely scene, hey, with all the birds chirping in the background. You can hear the turtle dove or ringneck dove, I forget what they call it these days. No, where's the other one? No, we're missing another one. Where do they keep going? I don't know where the puppies keep going. So it looks like we've only got 3 youngsters now. Hein, at this age, they're not going to be very successful if they hunt with the adults. And we actually witnessed it this morning. I don't know if you managed to catch our first sightings, where we had the wildebeest standing up in the road. He chased the dogs for a bit, and then we had just a few of the puppies left, and a young impala lamb literally ran towards them, and they cowered. They actually dropped their shoulders, they dropped down, they didn't know what to do with an impala lamb running at full speed towards them. They disappeared, so we're going to have to try and keep up with them. Well, there's still one bounding about. And they had no idea. They panicked, and then they tried to chase after it, but I mean, they missed the opportunity. An adult would have definitely caught it if it was there. So we're just going to go back around and through the little drainage line. So at this age, not so much. So that's why they keep sort of waiting, sitting in one spot, and adults will go do their thing. Because what will happen is if the adults do catch something, they'll eat as much as they can, and then they'll probably regurgitate for the puppies. That would be my best guess. And if the puppies are close by, they'll probably feed on the carcass too. But I don't think the adults are too worried about it. I think they just want to get a meal in them. There is a big herd of impala up in the distance there. Sorry, I didn't quite get the comms there. So I reckon that they're unsuccessful in trying to figure out where the other puppies have gone. I don't know why they keep getting separated. And maybe they'll flush that impala out onto the road and maybe back to this open clearing again. So I suppose we'll just stick with the dogs this morning. It's not a bad way though to spend, I think it's Saturday.
Alrighty guys, so we're relatively close to where they had those tracks for those male cheetahs. We're going to start following up on them soon, but just beautiful that the misty clouds are busy moving away from the sun. Believe me, we're hoping for a little bit of sunlight. And there's a Cape fox, actually a family of Cape foxes, lying just there on the right hand side. There you can see the one, and then you can see number 2 just in the shade at the back with the puppy behind it. Just see the ears of the pup. There's the one now standing up, but the pup was, I believe it's a pup. Just saw what I think is ears behind the, yeah, you can see the other ear sticking out. There, wait. Very cool. So you see they also just, those 2 in the shade, I don't know what they're doing, but this one in the sunlight, he's got the better idea of the 3. And they're just baking in the sun at the moment, you know, getting a little bit of heat before they have to go into the burrow for the middle part of the day. Very, very cool. We often find these little guys after good rain, when the termites are out, you know, the flying termites, the alids, on the road, busy chowing down on all of these little termites flying around. Quite high in protein, as you can imagine, and with them and the bat-eared foxes, predominantly you'll find that they are very dependent on the termite activity, them and then aardwolf and the aardvark and all of those things. So termites are life around here. And yeah, beautiful to see this early in the morning.
Well, the best thing has happened this morning because we have not 1, not 2, but 3 leopards together, which is so cool. So we've got Tswalu and the 2 cubs. They're busy milling about together. Little Langa is in front of me, and then Shasha and Mom just disappeared somewhere behind this bush, but I don't want to go too much further forward. And there they are, they're going to come out. Mom is just kind of to the right, and then you'll see all 3 of them should kind of mingle at some point, going behind the bush. The other one's kind of just coming out behind her. And there goes little Langa. She's getting big very, very quickly.
Now, it looks like they've just come off a kill because their bellies are all massive. They look like they're very full at the moment. So I don't know if they're just looking for somewhere to kind of lie up, or maybe she's got another kill for them. We know Tswalu is a master when it comes to feeding these two, and so maybe she's just leading them to another kill. So hopefully we'll be able to follow them. The good thing is that they've come out of an area that we can't traverse into an area that we can. So they're walking deeper and deeper into our area, which is really good news. So we should have them, bar them going into a certain place, which is right towards the lodge. We should be able to see them. Hello, boy. Long time no see. Look how big you're getting. It's so cool that we've got all these little young males around. I mean, it's not ideal because obviously they're going to all leave us at some point. But it's nice to see all the young boys between Tandi's little male and Kushava's little male and Tswalu's as well. But you can see how long the grass is. I mean, you would never really know that there's 3 leopards moving through this grass, especially when they go behind like that. It's incredible how quickly they disappear in these areas. I'm hoping, though, that they're going to eventually settle down somewhere where we can see them in a fairly open section. Obviously, this is quite dense and the grass is quite long, but I'm hoping they're going to find themselves like a little mound or maybe even a tree where one of them will go up and just go and rest for a little bit. That's the sort of hope anyway. Whether or not it pays off, I'm not quite sure. But nice to see the 3 of them. The last time I was here, they were pretty kind of elusive, is probably their word. They spent most of their time to the south of where we were, and so I didn't actually see much of them last time. So it's nice that they're kind of around first sort of morning out, or back, should I say. I wonder where she's heading off to. They're heading kind of towards Chitwa Dam at the moment, which means that let's go into a range. Otherwise, we're going to get ourselves stuck. Lorna, you say this is fantastic. It is fantastic, isn't it? Nice to see them. There we go. It's always a treat to see one leopard, but to see 3 together is especially cool. So really, really nice that they all are around, and kind of the time with all 3 together is going to grow shorter and shorter now. They're getting of the age where they're going to start being pushed by mom to start going off on their own. So, you know, sightings like this of all 3 together are going to become more and more infrequent as time goes on. So we have to enjoy these while we still can. Unfortunately, there is a car in front of me. I'm going to try and go ahead so that we can get them kind of in our own place. But they definitely kind of moving towards something. What it is, I'm not quite sure. Unfortunately, the route that they're going to take is super dense to get wherever they're going. There's this first little section that's really bad, and then after that, it opens out quite nicely. Just trying to see if I can get my way through here. I'm not sure we're going to be able to. A little bit of slowly and gently has worked a trick. There's a little mound coming up. Let's see, maybe they're going to go towards the mound. I think I'm going to stop here and see if we can actually get a view of them, because otherwise all you're going to be doing is looking at the back of my head mostly. But here comes, I think, one on the left. Oof, it's getting difficult to tell them all apart now because Mom and Cub are getting quite similar in size. I think it's Langa on the left, Tswalu on the right, and then I don't know where Shasha is. He's somewhere in all of this. So we'll just try and catch up with them. I was hoping they were going to go up onto this mound, but they've obviously decided that's not where they want to go. Oh, come on, Rusty. I know it was Shasha that was on the left. This is little Langa that's behind at the moment. Alrighty. There we go. Through that little
rough patch. I actually remember I had a sighting of Hosanna on this mound many moons ago. So it's always been a productive mound, that's for sure. Alright, I'm going to try and see if I can get a better visual of these guys again. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to Steve.
Well, welcome back to us on Djuma. I heard that direct in my ear there, as casual as can be. We've gone over to Tristan, who's got 3 leopards. It's as if that's a normal thing, everybody, to find 3 leopards. Tristan's been back, an hour and a half, and he finds 3 leopards. Well, you all know it. I know it. He's a leopard finding machine. We've come back over to Voitella's side to see if we had any activity of that male leopard crossing back. And it doesn't seem to be the case. So we're just going to carry on. Try to find some nice birds for you. We had a wonderful visual of a violet-backed starling a moment ago, but he's taken off. They are such a beautiful bird to see. This time of year, the male is in this beautiful violet color. He's normally pretty drab in the off-season, but now in the breeding season, he's very, very pretty. Try and find him for you. There's lots of birds around at the moment. And there's also lots of water. Every little puddle along the way has got water, which is another reason why finding animals this time of year is a bit tricky, but that's all right. It's nice to just explore once again and investigate what's been happening. So now I'm wondering what 3 leopards Tristan's found. It's probably Sibui and her cubs, or he's just found 3 random leopards having fun, having a tea party on this. Oh, it is cat today, everybody, isn't it? Saturday, cat today. Okay, so this is Sibui and her cubs. It's cat today. It wouldn't be cat today without some leopards, would it? No. Wonderful, the vegetation. There's a few wildflowers out, everybody, but there's not as many as I had hoped for. There's the Ipomeas and the rough male, a few around, but we'll probably have to go to quarantine to really get a grasp of the wildflowers that are about. And quarantine is a massive grassland at the moment, that open area close to camp. Last time I said it was devoid of vegetation entirely. Let's go this way. Let's go check the east. So a lovely pan along the end of this road called Gwari Pan, which I haven't seen with water for some time. It was always a favorite sort of area for Tlalamba to hang out in. Tandi's been in and around that area, heading over towards sort of Chitwa side. I heard that last night. She's spending a lot more time sort of in Chitwa area. I'd love to see her little boy. Haven't seen him in some time. But it's nice to just see the vegetation like this. Last year, I think we'd had quite a lot of rain about this time, and it's looking quite similar to what it was. Amazing the recovery that happens in these savannas. Very resilient ecosystems. They can get completely decimated vegetation-wise, and it just takes the right amount of rainfall and then transformation once again. So the seasonality of the vegetation out here and makes it a really wonderful sort of place to be, because you go through these dry times when you don't find many plants, and then it completely turns around, and so everyone's excited for some botanicals. I will be focusing on some plants over the next coming weeks. I am going to be here for a solid month. Yay! Solid month. So we'll be able to do lots and lots of plants. Maybe revisit some plants that we've dealt with in the past. We'll wait for Monday, shall we? It's going to be Tristan and myself on every shift for 2 weeks. And then he heads off. Let's not talk about that too soon. He's just arrived. So I'll try and do as many plants as we can in the coming month, shall we? Okay, well, it sounds like Cat Day is well underway, and it's not just here on the eastern side of the country, over in Tswalu Kalahari. They're doing the same.
Alrighty. So guys, as much as we struggled yesterday, it was so easy this morning. They were lying literally right next to the road. And stunning to have these two beautiful boys as a sighting. You can see they're looking around constantly. I can see their bellies are nice and flat, so even though they were chasing something yesterday, I don't think they came right. If it was something that they caught, it must have been something small, maybe like a steenbok or so for both of them to share. So not a lot of meat, and so I do think they're going to look to hunt either this morning or this afternoon. Constantly looking around. Behind us there's a blue wildebeest that's keeping an eye on them and alarm calling the whole time. So I don't necessarily think there's going to be any action happening soon, because everyone will be aware that there's something happening over here with that blue wildebeest calling the whole time. But maybe, after a while he's going to lose interest and he's going to move away. And then potentially there's going to be some springbok or maybe a young gemsbok or something like that. See how he jumped up now. Constantly keeping their ears open for movement. But yeah, hopefully there will be a prey animal coming in soon, and then we'll be able to see some action. But for the meantime, the one is just baking in the sun. Cobalt, you're absolutely right. Yeah, we've been having a very lucky morning so far. Lots of spots all over the feeds. So it's always nice to spend time with the cats, especially the spotted ones. Beautiful, beautiful. I don't think they're going to lay here for very long. It does seem like they're looking to be more active than static. So hopefully soon they'll get up. I don't think they're going to want to lay in the sun for too long though. So yeah, guys, we're going to wait for them to get a little bit more active. If they do that, we're going to come back here. But for the meantime, we're going to go back to the leopards in Djuma, okay?
Well, we are starting to see the opposite with our three leopards, is that they're starting to slow down a little bit. Every little shady spot, they're stopping. I wonder if she's going to go do a little meerkat pose above the grass. The grass is so long for little Langa that she struggles to be able to see over it. And mom and brother are already further ahead. And so you see that she's kind of constantly sort of trying to look over the grass while everybody else is able to see what's happening. I'm going to just try go around. There's a little open spot coming, and I'm hoping that they might drink there. It's like a little kind of mud wallow type thing. So just go around and see if we can get all three of them kind of walking roughly towards us. Just got to be a bit careful because it's quite a tricky area. It's not great from a sort of softness of ground point of view. It's very, very, very wet at the moment. There we go. All right, all three of you together. Come on. No, she's not going to drink. So Sibui's come over already. Shasha's in the shade. He's not interested in this whole story. I don't know, Langa's having a little drink as well. So I was hoping all three of them were going to line up together to drink, but it seems as though what we're going to end up with is only the two of them.
I'm surprised though that they're moving so much, given how full they are. I would have expected her not to have taken them as far as she has already. I would have thought that they would have just found some shade and lay down. Like I say, maybe she does have another kill somewhere, or she wants to take them somewhere where she knows they'll be safe, which is a drainage line to our left. That is perfect for her to be able to kind of hide them while she goes off and hunts again. That's very, very cool to see all three though. Hello boy, look how big he's getting. He's got such a big tummy these days as well. Always well fed, these cubs. They very seldom look like they're in need of a meal. They typically find food pretty quickly with mom. Pete, these guys now must be... They were born, I'm just trying to work it out now. It must be 15, 16 months. If I'm not mistaken, somewhere there. Maybe even a little bit less, 14. It's somewhere in that ballpark. So they're at the age now where they're going to start to kind of be a pain in mom's backside. You'll find that these female leopards will start to shift their cubs anywhere between 14 months and 2 years, start getting them out. Typically what we see, particularly in kind of female leopards with a mixed cub litter, is that the male typically tries to stay close to mom for longer than the little female. Little female often is the one that goes off first, but in this case I don't know. I think Shasha might be the one that ends up going first. He seems to be a lot more independent than the little female. She's always close to mom, whereas he's milling about and doing all of his own things, typical of a little young male. Alright, let's try and see. Where they're going is really not easy at all. It's a very, very dense, thick area down here. Our cars should be able to go. I don't think other vehicles will be able to do it, but ours should be able to get down and into this drainage line. There's a little road that goes ahead and then it cuts back, which is pretty cool. But there's a nice shot of all three of them kind of in the road. So you've got mom in front and then the two cubs at the back. There's also some elephants up ahead as well. Cool though, isn't it? I like the shadow on that particular one as well. It's a cool kind of shot of the little tail curling. I wonder if they're going to bump into these ellies or if it's going to dictate where they go. I suspect that they might just go down in here and lie down and rest. There's some nice cool sort of sandy riverbeds here that are often quite wet. The overflow from Chitwa Dam causes this back end here to be quite flooded at times. So it's the perfect place for a little leopard to go and lie down. These two cubs spend a lot of time in this area. They are left here by mom quite regularly. So I wouldn't be surprised if they left here and she carries on, or if they're just going to have a little bit of a nap today and then she'll go off this afternoon. Very, very cool. All right, let's see. We can, like I say, follow them down. Other vehicles will struggle, but for us it's a little bit easier to get in there and down below. That's the advantages of having a shorter wheelbase, is that you can get into these kind of small sections and be able to sort of follow them. All right, so we'll see where they go and whether they're going to go down and lie up. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to Steve. You're welcome. Welcome back. And how awesome. Leopards hunting elephants is definitely a first for me. I don't think much will transpire there, but it's always fun to see the interaction between large cats and the biggest of them all. But here we found not the violet-backed starling, but a cousin, one of the glossy starlings, perched on top of the tree, has been calling loudly, had a partner with it for a moment, declaring their territory. And it's possible that they might even be breeding in this dead tree that we see. Talking about elephants, elephants are often responsible for damaging trees to the point where they die and then it leads to what we call habitat trees. Off he goes. So all the starlings will nest in cavities, in trees. Many birds will nest in cavities and trees, including all the hornbills, barbets, woodpeckers, of course. It's the barbets, woodpeckers that often make the cavity, looking for access to wood-boring insects or beetles that are inside the wood. And their activity of accessing those grubs leads to cavities being formed, which are then utilized by a multitude of bird species. Now that sounds like a fork-tailed drongo to me. Looks like one as well. Just behind the bush. Is it a fork-tailed drongo? I can't really tell, but I think it is. Hello, Lisa, 8 years old. The smallest bird that we find in these areas would be the penduline tit. It's not a very common bird seen here, but the penduline tit, the smallest bird that we see around in South Africa, is the fairy flycatcher. Both very cool little birds. I've only seen the fairy flycatcher once. I saw that in north of Johannesburg. And I've seen the penduline tits a couple times. I haven't seen one yet here in the Sabi Sands, but I have no doubt that they do occur. Sorry about the amazing visual of this bird. It is definitely a fork-tailed drongo. Yes. When the leaves part. The honey badger of the sky. They are not hole nesting birds. They make a beautiful little cup in the fork of a tree, very well camouflaged. As with all the flycatchers, that is, a fork-tailed drongo is actually a flycatcher. Off he goes. Oh, he's chasing a shrike. Gone into the tree. Competition between birds is very, very strong. You get lots of sort of interspecies. So within the species, fork-tailed drongos are very aggressive against other fork-tailed drongos. But then they're also very aggressive against birds of a different species when it comes to food resource. We call inter-specific is between species and intra is within the species. Obviously, lions would fight with lions, but then they also fight with leopards and hyena. So it's very important to note those different types of strategies. And it's for that reason why you don't find too many birds or too many mammals that are too similar. There we go. With regards to their feeding behavior or their nesting or their habitat, all of them fit into a very specific niche in the environment. And obviously this time of year there's plenty of food, so competition is a little bit less. But it's for that reason why so many birds will migrate, because once the food resource, being the insects, which is abundant this time of year, once that starts to dwindle, the very territorial or sort of dominant species will stick around, or those that have figured out a specialized feeding mechanism. And you might think, what on earth is a specialized feeding mechanism? Now, there are 3 types. Filter feeders. It's a very, very common type of feeding mechanism. Well, not very common, but ducks, flamingos, geese. And then you get pecking, the form of woodpeckers. And then you get probing, the form of hardy-dars. Many of your aquatic birds with their sort of long probing-like beak. Have a look at how those shapes of the beak can go from decurved to recurved. Recurved means facing upwards in the form of the pied avocet. And just the slightest change in the shape of that beak changes the competitive edge or the feeding potential of that bird. Even within the same species, for example, in the green woodhoopers, the male's beak is longer than the female's, so that they don't have to compete as much with each other. But a predator that has a very hard time with other predators in competition is the much more weaker cheetah.
Alrighty, guys, so the one brother just decided he's rather going to share the shade, which evidently proved to not be enough for everyone. So that's why the other bros sat up now. And as you can see, the one that lied down just now is making himself quite comfortable. So I think this other guy is gonna pretty soon look for a different shady spot maybe. The bond between these two brothers are actually quite incredible. They do really love each other. So you'll quite often find them cuddling quite a bit, lying on top of one another almost. See, this is now also the perfect way for them to lie, to be able to almost cover a 360 degree, well, not if your head is down like that, but almost a 360 degree angle around them, apart from now whatever's behind the bush that they're lying underneath. So often you'll find the smaller animals lying bum to bum like that, or even the herbivores. You know, you often find buffalo lying almost in a circle with their heads facing outwards and so on. And that's all just to be able to see everything that can potentially come towards them. For the herbivores, it's more a protection method. For these guys at the moment, I think it will be more to just spot prey coming. However, it will also be a very effective way of them making sure that there's not a hyena creeping up on them, or a leopard or something like that. For them, though, I don't think a female leopard will be brave enough to take on two of them. Patricia, that's a very difficult question to answer definitively. I do think it's just because they have to be more aware of their surroundings, so they lay with their heads up quite often, just to be able to, if they open their eyes, immediately have a view of what's going on. However, one day when we can speak to the cheetahs and they can tell us why, then we'll have a more clear answer. But I do think it's more like that. With them being, even though they stand quite tall, with them being relatively small as far as muscle is concerned, and also much weaker than the other predators, they always have to keep an eye out for danger. So it could be something like that. There could be a totally different reason as well. For them also, it could be something as simple as with their heads being slightly smaller than what you'd find on a leopard or a lion. It's not so heavy, so it doesn't bother them too much to have that head up lying down. But as you can see, not the case at the moment. They're lying flat. So when they do want to, properly just rest, sleep, and they're not worried about what's going on around them, you'll find them lying with their heads flat on the ground like that, just like we'll do. Definitely picking up on something every now and again. I think there's a smell in the air that they're picking up, that they're not quite sure what it is, or they might be sure what it is, but they're not spotting it just yet. So yeah, to come back to your question, I do think, if I had to give my opinion, I think it's more a case of them having to look out for danger constantly, or potential threats, which is what causes them to lay up with their heads. But it could be something totally different. Yeah, guys, I think what we'll do is the shade is making it a little difficult with the bright light around it. So we're going to reposition quickly, and for the meantime, send you back to Tristan with his leopards. When we get a better view, we'll come back here, okay?
Well, our leopards are doing exactly what those cheetah are doing, and have found themselves a nice shady spot, and they've settled down. There's no kill that I can see. I think they've just come into the drainage line just because, one, it's shady, two, there's water here, and three,
this is a safe place that they've spent a vast majority of their time over the years. Well, not over the years, but over the course of their sort of growing up. And so they know that this is a good spot for them. And I think what we're going to find is all three of them sleeping, and then Mom will leave them this afternoon and she'll go off and do her thing. And the two of them will be left in the drainage line for the next little bit until Mom is successful in finding a meal again. But it really is a kind of difficult area. The view of them is not going to be very good, I'm afraid. What we're mostly going to see is just spots behind lots of grass. They've chosen quite a tough place to lie down. I was hoping that they were going to go a little bit further, because there's a section here with a beautiful sandbank. Well, there used to be. I mean, I haven't been down here for a while. But there's this beautiful sandbank, and it's often a little bit damp, and so it would have been nice and cool and would have been a perfect view of the three of them. But alas, they are not doing that. They have decided this is where they're going to settle. Maybe this afternoon we'll get lucky and they'll kind of, all three of them will be on those sort of sandbanks. But either way, spoiled this morning. Always an absolute treat when you get a few leopards in a sighting. And Tswalu and the cubs are always so nice, because and unlike, when you get interactions of different leopards, that's often there's a little bit of aggression and it's quite tricky. These three are all so relaxed, and when they're together, it's just the most magical thing to watch the three of them kind of walk around. And every now and then, Shasha and Langa play a little bit, and then you'll find, Tswalu gets involved sometimes, and they all kind of crash into her every now and then. So it's really, really joyful kind of watching them. They always seem quite happy when the three of them are together. I'm not sure Mom will agree. You might find she sees it very differently to how we do. But it's just nice to kind of get to spend time with all three of them. I'm pretty sure that we'll find them here this afternoon. They might have moved a little bit, which will make it tough, because this drainage line is very, very difficult in terms of undulating terrain, and if it's wet in here, it's near impossible. So they might move a little bit, but I don't think they'll move too far. So it's good prospects for this afternoon, maybe even tomorrow morning. If Mom's not successful, she won't return, and these two then will probably be up to all kinds of shenanigans by then. Today they have full tummies, but tomorrow that will all be gone, and they'll probably be causing havoc like they generally do when they are left to their own devices. I remember very clearly finding the two of them not so long ago, and they were tormenting impalas, by one chasing, and then the other one would chase, and then this one would chase, and then the other one would chase, and it was just an absolute circus, and these poor impalas didn't know where to go. He's looking incredible though, isn't he? Is our little boy. He's certainly been well fed through his life, and he's going to be a chunky little cat, which is pretty typical of most young leopards. I mean, we always say this, that these young males are chunky individuals, and the lineages that we have in these areas typically produce really nice sized male leopards, so we're lucky in that regard, that's for sure. Nope, he's decided that's the shade he's going to go and lie in, which is near impenetrable. So what I think we're going to do is another vehicle that wants to get in, and it's a vehicle that we know very well. It's Herbie, who's on driving some guests. So I'm going to probably just let him have a chance and let him come in here, because it's not easy for these guys, to get into these areas. So we'll see. All right, I'm going to make way and see what else I can go and find.
Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply. The new year has arrived, and with it comes all kinds of other new beginnings. From hyena cubs to meerkat pups, the bush is full of new life. If you want to find out more, then sign up to be an explorer and join our New Beginnings Fireside Chat. Tristan and Steve will be looking at what's new here in the wilderness as we enter 2021. Join them on the 17th of January, straight after the Sunset Safari. Our first Wild Earth Explorers competition has closed. And we have a winner. Congratulations to Chantal Sleep from Benoni in South Africa.
I felt totally overwhelmed for winning this prize. I will be taking my son with me, and I can't wait to share this experience with him.
Chantal and her son have won a behind-the-scenes Wild Earth experience at the magnificent and beyond Ngala tented safari camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay and a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse.
I would like to thank Wild Earth for making this dream come true, and I encourage everybody to subscribe, to become an explorer, and stand the chance to win these amazing prizes, and so much more.
For this month, we have a brand new prize. You could be jetting off to Tswalu in the Kalahari for a 3-night stay at the luxurious Motsi Lodge. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply.
Alrighty guys, so now you can see that it's a little tough at the moment with the lighting. But this is as good as we're going to get them. We're literally sitting like 5 meters, not even 5 meters away from them. But with the sun coming out now, it is quite bright. And you can see they're also looking to become a little bit more lazy. You know, with the cats, typically when the sun is out, when it gets warm, they need to save as much energy as they can, so they don't want to really be moving at that time. The cheetahs are a little bit better with that. They sometimes move still at this hour, well, in this temperature, let's say that. But typically speaking, as soon as it gets warm, you'll find them becoming a bit more static. He is still keeping an eye out for whatever might be around. I do think they are hungry. Well, I'm pretty sure they're hungry. I could see their bellies are quite flat. So if there's an easy opportunity presenting itself to make a quick chase and a kill, will still make sense for them. However, I feel like if it gets any warmer, they might decide to take it easy for now and then go again this afternoon. Chad, so it all depends on what they hunt for. So with these two males, they typically go for larger species, so red hartebeest or young oryx or gemsbok, or a female kudu or something like that. So normally you'll find them killing quite a large antelope for their size. So these guys don't need to hunt as often, just because when they have hunted and they were successful, and it is a large thing, they'll have meat for maybe 2 days or maybe 3 before they have to, if they're lucky enough to finish the kill now, before a hyena steals it from them or so. They'll have meat for 2 to 3 days before that kill is finished, and then only they'll have to look to hunt again maybe a day after that. So if that is the case, if they don't lose their kill, so let's say ideal scenario, they'll have to hunt, let's say, or they'll look to hunt maybe once every 3rd to 4th day. However, if they kill something smaller, let's say a springbok, they'll finish it within the day, and then tomorrow afternoon they'll start looking to hunt again. So typically you'll find them going not necessarily without hunting, but without eating for maybe a day before they start looking to hunt again. You know, as soon as they did kill something, they'll absolutely gorge themselves, so fill up those bellies so much so that it looks uncomfortable for them to walk even. And then should the meat be finished and their bellies are still nice and round, they'll take an easy day. Just digest and, you know, be lazy, save a little bit of energy. Because as you can imagine, if a lion can sit down and eat 40 kilograms of meat, I think this guy can eat at least 10 to 15 kilos before that belly is nice and full. So you don't really want to be running around with a belly full of meat at 100 kilometers an hour, you know. So typically they'll take an easy day to just digest a little bit of that meat, get that out of the way, and then they'll look to hunt again. Absolute worst scenario, they can go up to about 14 days without eating, which in that case, I don't feel like they're going to be strong enough to make a kill anymore. They'll have to start scavenging. But yeah, typically speaking, let's say for these two boys, they'll look to hunt, let's say on average, every third day. And they're also not successful every time. So sometimes they will take a day extra without eating before they get successful. So that's also another factor to keep in mind. But yeah, guys, we're going to chill here with them for a little bit. In the meantime, you're going to go and have a look at those leopards with Tristan.
Well, luckily we got to stay with our leopards a little bit longer. Somebody else very kindly offered to move out and make space, so we're allowed to stay with them. You can see that we've managed to get a better view now of Shasha. Lango was with him, but she's just moved now. There was some alarm calls that took place, and then she moved, and now he's following. There's been lots of alarm calls that don't make sense to me. We had Franklin's earlier when I had all three of them. There's some Nyala that just started barking. I can't see Mom, so it could be her, but I wonder if maybe there's not another leopard in here. This drainage line that we're in is a place where Tandi, Kuchava, I've seen them all hanging around in here. And then obviously we know the likes of Muluwati could come into this area too. So there's a number of different possibilities as to who actually could be in this section. I'm going to try and see if I can get us a view of them. I'm just going to have to do a bit of fancy footwork, so to speak, with the vehicle in order to try and get ourselves into position. Luckily, like I say, where they've gone now, there actually is a way that this car can get through. Whether they've come down enough for us to see them is going to be debatable, and whether it's dry enough for me to get through is also debatable. I'm trying to see where they are. So they were there. Don't see them anymore, but I'm also a little bit concerned about the state of this riverbed, and whether or not it's dry enough. Oof, no, definitely not going to be able to. Thought not. We are going to get ourselves very stuck here. We're going to have to try and go forward. It's our only option, I'm afraid. There we go. We managed to get our way through. Oh, sorry, Mom, I didn't see you there. And Mom is just in front here. I think it's Mom. Or is it Shasha? It's Shasha. Sorry, Shasha, I didn't see you there. It's very thick in here, so not easy all the time to see them. Anyway, while we kind of sit with these guys and figure out where they're going to lie down, let's send you back across to Tswalu.
Alrighty, guys, so yeah, as you can see, there's constantly some head movement between either from the one on the right or from the one on the left. More from the one on the left, the lower ranking brother. As you can imagine, with him being slightly lower ranked, if they do kill something small, he's going to have very little meat to eat, because the stronger brother is going to do most of the feeding. But I do feel like there is something here that they're picking up, but they're just not seeing it yet. And, well, we're definitely not seeing it or picking up on what they are aware of around them. So I'm actually hoping to just be able to see what they're smelling or what they're hearing or whatever, just so that we can also know what the potential is for a active sighting. But as you can see, getting very lazy. That sun is baking him nicely. Renata, yeah, they will recognize their own cubs, the male cheetahs. And they'll also know which females they mated with, so they'll know that their litter is theirs. However, it is well, it has happened before, where not only with cheetahs but also with leopards, you'll find a female where she has her territory that overlaps two different sets of males, or in the case of leopards, two different male territories. She'll actually go and mate with both of them just after one another, to, make sure that both of them think that those are their cubs when they get born, and then they don't kill them. So genetically speaking, they can't recognize if this cub is theirs, if they have to, just recognize him by gene. But they will know which females they mated with and which cubs are born from, after they mated with those females. So definitely they'll recognize them like that. However, like I said, sometimes the females are smart if they know that there's more than one male in the area, and they'll go and mate with both of them, or I think in extreme cases maybe all three of them, just to make sure that her cubs are safe from being attacked by a potential male that knows that it's not her cubs or his cubs. So just as an insurance policy. But yeah, they will know which cubs are theirs, and I won't say they'll protect them, but they will definitely not be aggressive or as aggressive towards them as cubs that are born from another male, which they know of. These two boys, however, they've been moving around quite a bit looking for females to mate with. We've seen them harassing. I don't know if you guys were for those of you who were, about a week ago, we had an incredible sighting of these two males with a female cheetah that's got 4 cubs. And those males were just constantly asking nicely in the beginning, and then later on got a little bit more restless to try and mate with that female. The cubs will definitely be a determining factor, their age and so on will determine whether the female is going to be, not ready for mating. She'll definitely be ready for mating more or less about 3 months after having the cubs, but just to whether she'll allow herself to get pregnant again. So yeah, guys, I think Tristan's gotten visual of those leopards again. We're going to go over to him to see what's going on there.
Well, as you can see, we've managed not to get stuck. 1, 2, we've managed to get a view of them, which is a good thing. They're both just lying in the shade, having a bit of a rest. That's Shasha on the left, and then little Lunga is on the right of where he is, kind of closer towards where we are. So you can see her just moving there. And then Mom is somewhere here as well. I kind of heard her rather than saw her. She's somewhere on the right of, not on the right of them, but the left of where they are, on the right side of the kind of drainage line. But they're going to go fast asleep now. I don't think they're going to go too far. The problem is finding them this afternoon again. If they move from where they're sitting now, it's going to be near impossible. Some of this grass is taller than the car at the moment, which is going to make trying to actually see them in all of this very, very, very tricky. I suppose we can't complain too much. I mean, we've had a fairly decent view of them this morning. It's been very, very pleasant just to hang out with them, and even a few little bouncy spots in the form of a fat tummy is better than no spots at all. There was a moment there where I thought we were going to get stuck. The sand is still a little bit soft in places, but luckily this vehicle is quite light, and we had enough momentum just to kind of push through and be fine. Once we got level, it was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. So we were able to move pretty easily and not have to worry too much, because it wouldn't have been a nice place to get stuck. The problem is that we're the only vehicle that can get in here, so I would have had to have gotten Steve to come and try get us out, and then, you risk getting him stuck too. So I'm glad that didn't happen. It's always much better when you are able to kind of avert a crisis and get stuck in the bush out here. Also, there's a lot of mocking that goes on for those that do get stuck. That's for sure. But you can see that full tummy. He obviously got most of the meal, because Sibwe and Langa certainly don't seem as round as he does. It looks like Langa's had a little bit, but he really has eaten a lot. So maybe it was an Impala lamb. At the ages that they're at, he would really kind of devour a lamb, pretty much most of it. She would, be able to eat a little bit of the scraps. So maybe it was that. Maybe he killed himself and then Mom has found the two of them. I don't know. But there's definitely, he has eaten a lot more. And he's getting bigger and stronger now, which means that he's going to be able to bully his sister quite heavily off of meals. And even Mom to a degree. He's standing as tall as she is now, but is definitely a lot heftier, if that's the right word, than what she is currently. So he's going to get to that point where he can start kind of throwing his weight around a little bit, and maybe that's why he's eaten more than the other two. Golden eagle, what biggest that they can catch, and there's all kinds of myths and fables and things, but personally the biggest I've seen from a female point of view is a fully grown female kudu, which is a large animal. I mean, it's almost 3 times their body weight, and that was Tandi, actually not far from where we are right now. And then male wise, baby elephant, baby rhino, baby giraffes. Those would be the kind of upper limit of what they've be able to achieve. The big problem is that a lot of the time, even though there are big animals that they can potentially take down, it's really not worth it for them, because they lose it pretty quickly to the likes of hyenas, etc. So, they don't often target large creatures, but they box well above their weight category in terms of how powerful they are and whether or not they're actually able, to bring down large animals, which they certainly are most capable of doing. They pull down big things relative to their body weight, that's for sure. You can see they're looking around a little bit. It's just another vehicle that's just trying to kind of get to a place where they can at least see. It's pretty tricky for them, based off the fact that the grass is so long. It's not exactly easy for us either, but don't think they're going to have much luck. But you'll see them popping their heads up every now and then because they're listening to the car, sort of trying to get through and towards where we are. And I think this is a resting place for the day, that's for sure. I don't suspect there'll be too much more. It's such a pity that they came this way. If they'd just pushed a little bit to the right, there's a beautiful little set of rocks. There's this nice kind of flat boulder, and if they'd gone up on there, it would have been absolutely beautiful. There's not a single kind of bit of vegetation on this boulder. It's in the shade, so it will be nice and cold. So I was hoping that was where they were going to go, and then at the base of that is that big flat sandbank that I was talking about. So it would have been perfect if all three had lay up there. Alas, I think they found the nearest shade and decided this is it. This is where I'm going to spend my time and take it easy and have a good rest. Taylor, not long. Once Mom starts to get aggressive with them, then they can hang around a little bit together, but it's really not a long period. It's normally, a month, if that, and they then start to separate out. If you take Khosana and Shongile, which is a very different situation because Mom disappeared, not they were pushed out. They hung around together for kind of 6 weeks, or months to 6 weeks, and then you started to see more and more of them apart and on their own. And that's just that natural instinct starts to kick in, the solitary nature of these guys, and the fact that they, start to hunt for themselves and make their own kills. They start to separate out pretty quickly.
you don't really see siblings hanging around. And funny enough, even with mom, sometimes siblings leave at different times. So mom might be far more aggressive to one than to the other, and she'll tolerate the other one for a little bit longer. It's normally the case that she pushes the female first, because the female typically is much smaller than the male, and is it's a lot easier for mom to dominate her and to really show aggression to her, whereas the males get, the harder it is for mom to really kind of put their foot down and stamp their authority. And so you find often males stick with their moms a little bit longer. And there was actually a case when I first started guiding, and in fact my first ever sighting of leopards in the Sabi Sands was a female by the name of Ravenscourt. And Ravenscourt was in the sort of center parts of the Sabi Sands. And at the time she had 2 male cubs that were about, I think they were at that stage about 9 to 10 months old. Maybe they might have been a little bit older. And then she had her previous litter male who wouldn't leave her alone and had just been staying with her since he was born. And he was almost 3.5, 4 years old by then. So it was like this kind of pride of leopards that walked around with this massive male leopard, because at 4 years old, or 3.5 years old, they're pretty chunky and big by then. That's when they're starting to establish their own territories. And so it was quite amazing to see this female trying to feed these 3 brutes, because not only was the older cub a male, but the 2 younger ones were boys too. And so by the time they reached a year old, you can imagine having 3 of the size of Shasha and having to feed all of them. It must have been an absolute nightmare. So, she had a tough time. And you used to often find her that she would make a kill, and the older male would stash it in a tree. And then she'd have to go and make another kill for the other 2 males, and then eventually she might get a scrap from either of those, or she would just go and kill again and kind of feed herself. So it wasn't uncommon to have kind of 2 different kills in 2 different trees, with all the boys kind of feeding and then her milling about at the bottom and looking for food. It was a pretty amazing thing to witness, and it was like that for a long time. I mean, she, like I say, it was pretty much a year and a half that she walked around with the 3 boys of different ages, which is quite crazy. Eventually, the older male did separate. I mean, I think when she started to come into her next estrus cycle, he left, and unfortunately, he disappeared in the 2012 floods. So no one knows what happened to him. Hopefully, whatever it was wasn't painful. But he was also a beautiful, beautiful little leopard. It was called Chinzele. So unfortunately, he didn't live for too long, but very cool cat, that's for sure. It's going to be really interesting also to see what happens with all of these young males and where they distribute out. There's going to be a lot of young males at the same time between the 3 boys that we have. So I'm quite keen to see who goes where and how it all plays out. Anyway, I think we're going to leave these guys to it. So there's a couple other vehicles that want to come and try their luck, and send you across to the 2 cheetah. Hopefully they're more active than our 2 leopards.
Okay guys, so the direction in which these cheetahs are constantly looking is the direction that we came in from. So with that being the case, unless I missed, not myself only, but unless we missed something driving here, I didn't see any springbok or, kudus or anything like that moving in. So what we might do is we might actually let them sleep for a little bit, see if we can potentially see something else. There's a waterhole not far away from here. See if there's something coming down to the water there or so. And then come back in a short while to see if they're not looking to be a little bit more active. As you can see, the shade is creeping closer and closer to them, which means the sunlight's going to hit them not too long from now, and they'll have to move to a better shady spot. But I don't see any action happening in the near future, or let's say in the next 2 minutes. Simon, that's a very interesting question. No, not really. With them being the weaker ones of the larger predators that we have, in South Africa or in Southern Africa for that matter, typically speaking, they won't steal. However, what I have seen before is I once saw 2 male cheetahs, not these two, a different game reserve, who took down a blue wildebeest, and they were busy feeding on the kill when a leopard came and chased them off initially, and they weren't off the kill for too long where they decided, you know what, no, we're not going to have this, and they came back and they stole the kill back, which is quite uncommon to see, but that's also the only case where I've ever seen them, you know, I wouldn't say defending their kill, because that they will do against maybe a brown hyena or something like that, but it is the only case where I've ever seen them stealing something back. But to go out and, you know, come across, let's say, a leopard with a kill and steal it off of that leopard, I have not heard of a single case, and nor have I seen it. Even something like a hyena, if they are on a carcass and the cheetahs walks by, and it doesn't matter how hungry they are, they will still not look to take the chance to try and chase a larger predator than them off of a kill and take it for themselves. You know, the risk of injury is just too high for them, and as you can imagine, when a cheetah's got a sore foot or a sore leg or a wonky hip or something like that after an encounter with a larger predator, that means that cheetah can't hunt, which will most likely result in him starving to death. So, no, I want to say, well, from my personal experience and from what I've seen even on television, I've never seen that happening. So you'll rather find things being stolen from them than them stealing something from something else. Isolated occasions, maybe. If they come across a caracal that's killed maybe a springbok or something like that, with them being larger than that predator, they'll try, I think. But I've never actually seen this happen, so I don't think so, eh? But yeah, at the moment, they might be dreaming of stealing kills from lions or so, but I don't think they're going to do much more than what we are seeing at the moment. So, unless there's something coming into the area soon, it is going to get too hot for them. But we will take a little loop and come back here and see if they don't want to maybe move to another tree, get them being a little bit more active than they are right now, or hopefully when we come back there's something that moved into the area which drew their attention, and they might look to hunt. But if not, guys, I mean, there's luckily this afternoon where we come back and it starts cooling down and them getting active and definitely then looking to hunt. But yeah, I think we're going to move on now, see what else we can find, and then come back a little later, see if they're going to get a little active.
Well, we've also left our leopards and I'm going to probably try our luck this afternoon. Hopefully they're in a slightly better spot. I mean, I'm not confident, but you never know. So we're going to just try to go around here quickly and see what's happening at Chitwa Dam. I did hear some elephants making some noise, so maybe they're swimming. They might be done already, but it was quite a while ago that I heard them. We'll go and just check in case they are there. Looks like there's a bunch of antelope, but I don't see any ellies. Some impalas here running, but they don't look too stressed about life.
No, they look very relaxed, and I also don't see any sign of any ellies at all. There's a waterbuck also in front of us at this stage. Well, we're going to try and see if we can find these ellies. They definitely were making noise earlier. Maybe they came for a quick drink and then just left. All right, while I try go and find them, hopefully we'll have a little bit of luck somewhere down the line. Hello everybody, we are on Torchwood, just checking out what's going on this side. We have found tracks of a female leopard that we're following up on for a moment, and then we found tracks of a pride of lions, of course, that was around Torchwood watering hole. We're just trying to figure out where exactly they might have gotten to. Tracks went into the block, they got obscured by some elephant tracks, and so we're just going to go check the western boundary going into Djuma to see if maybe they've crossed. Otherwise, they might have crossed south towards Torchwood, towards Chitwa and Little Gowrie. Good to follow up. Here we're about to get to Cheetah Cut Line. Always nice to check the boundaries, see who's come in and who's gone out. Obviously, without being here for some time, it's always nice to figure out where all the animals are, where they're headed. Tandy still seems to be hanging around sort of Torchwood watering hole area. Unfortunately, we don't have the best signal range there, so we've had to come out. Sarah, you want to know what the most difficult animal to track is? Well, people only really track the big stuff. So when it comes down to tracking, it becomes very difficult when you want to start tracking antelope. Antelope are not as easy as you think. I find giraffe quite easy to track. Elephant's pretty simple. Buffalo are probably the easiest. Rhino are not too difficult to track. But when it comes to the big five, leopard are definitely the hardest. But then a pride of lions hunting or a lioness on her own can be tricky. Because if they don't stick to roads and they move around. But in saying that as well, this time of year also makes it a little bit harder because the vegetation is so dense and so thick, it becomes almost impossible to follow them if they do leave the road. So knowledge of an area is very, very important. But historically, people only really track the big five. But it's becoming common practice now to track antelope, because that is a skill on its own. I spent quite a bit of time tracking kudu with Steph. It's not easy. It's not easy. I've tracked a few giraffe in my life, which was really fun. But yeah, historically leopards are the trickiest to track. But then you find some people who are expert leopard trackers. But that's taken years and years to develop. I'm sure Tristan would agree with me. Leopard's probably the hardest. Buffalo, they leave 1,000 tracks and huge amounts of compost and dung on the floor, so they're quite simple. Buffalo bull, though, not as easy as a herd, of course. And then a herd of elephants are quite easy to find, as Tristan can tell you. Well, we have managed to get some success with our ellie. We found one. I don't think it was the ones I heard. I think this is just by chance that there's another one. You can see he's sniffing around. So either there's fruit falling from the jackalberry, which could be possible, or he's picked up the scent of the ones that were here that were making the noise earlier, and he's following that, because you see his trunk is fairly busy. It's kind of sniffing about all over the place. Normally, if it's a tree kind of based food item, they go right up close to the tree in the sort of, what would you call it, the sort of radius of the tree itself and the low-lying branches. I think he's found mud instead now. Are you going to have a good mud wallow? Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen. So he's had a little drink and now he's going to go and find mud. And you find Ellies do this regularly, particularly on days like today where it's quite warm already. This is all just going to be to try and control body temperature, particularly. And then the secondary effect that they're going to have with this mud bath is that it's parasite control in some respects, because what you'll find is that even though a lot of people don't think elephants have ticks, they do. They get them quite regularly. And what happens is they encapsulate those ticks in mud and then they go and rub and it kind of pulls those off. It also exfoliates the skin and just keeps the skin in better condition. So it's a nice kind of side bonus to the cooling down factor. And you can tell that he's trying to cool himself down because look where he's throwing the mud. He's throwing it up onto his sort of chest area and between his legs and then onto his ears. So the reason for that is the softest, thinnest skin is around his belly and on his kind of leg joints and on the back of the ears. And so if you cool that down, it's cooling the blood down much faster than throwing, let's say hypothetically, on the really thick skin parts on the side of the body. While they do throw there a little bit, the concentrated, or most of it, will actually be concentrated around ears and underbelly more than anything else. Yes, Egyptian geese, I hear you. I was quite glad. I was actually going to go and park in the shade there and watch him because it is so warm, but if we had been there, we would have by now been covered in mud from head to toe, the way that he's throwing it. You'll be surprised how far an elephant can fling mud. It doesn't look like it goes that far, but within 10 meters of that eddy, you're going to get big droplets of mud smashing into you. It's always nicer just to be a little bit further away when they're doing this kind of stuff. And you can see quite nicely there from the ear when it was flapping forward all of the veins and why the cooling works so well on their ears when he flaps forward, particularly in the sunlight. If you look as it goes forward in the sun, you'll see that there's those long, thick veins that are in there, and so those cool very, very quickly and just help this guy maintain his body temperature in what can be quite oppressive heat during the summer months. Crunchy Coach, most definitely you get a massive explosion in tick numbers during the rainy season. You'll find most ticks start to breed during that time, and then they have a lot of hiding places, so not as easily found by anything. So when the grass gets long, then the ticks become an absolute nightmare. And you'll find anybody that's been doing a lot of walking in the bush lately will have kind of all of these bites all over their legs. It's very common at this time of the year. So yes, there will be a higher population of ticks now as opposed to June, July, August, September, October, when it's drier. Let's see if he's going to go look for his jackalberry fruits. Kind of heading towards there. So it's normally the right time now for jackalberry fruits, and then we start to go transition from them into the marulas and then into the torchwoods a little bit later. Sinak, probably. They, I'm sure, do get internal parasites, potentially worms or nematoids of some sort would be inside there. They in pretty foul water a lot of the time. And swimming and kind of doing things there, so they might pick up little internal parasites, potentially even something like bilharzia, whether it affects them. I've never heard of an elephant affected by bilharzia, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's in their bloodstream. Maybe their bloodstream is just strong enough that it doesn't really bother them too much. So yeah, I'm 99.9% sure there's a multitude of different parasites that they have inside. But they've just, as time has gone on, like most animals, they learn to survive and have ways their immune systems are able to counteract the effect, and they're able to actually survive, and it doesn't really affect them too much. And we saw it last time I was here with the wild dogs. There was that pup that had all the tapeworms that were coming out of its behind. So it's quite a common thing. I've seen it in lions as well. I've seen it in a leopard too. Funny enough, not really in any of the dung of the herbivores. I haven't really picked up anything kind of worm-like in their dung, but I suppose it is possible. What's wrong? Oh, you're already giving us attitude and you're far away. No, I'm going to stop the attitude and now have a little scratch. Isn't it pretty, though? That's one thing about this time of the year is these blue skies with this green bush. Any animal in it just always looks that much more impressive in these kind of green, rich landscapes, particularly the darker animals. I find that they contrast so heavily against the kind of green. It is really, really pretty at this time of the year. Now, I suspect that he might come and say hello. Often these young bull ellies, and I mean he's not young, but he's young enough, are quite curious. So they like to kind of make a beeline for where you are and come and sort of just make sure you understand that they are the bigger kind of specimen out here. Problem is he's going to go behind us, which isn't ideal. I was hoping he was going to come in front. All right, our bull Ellie is going to disappear into the drainage line. Hopefully he doesn't chase our leopards. In the meantime, though, it sounds like Steve has found some elephants of his own. Well, that's what they do best. They disappear. We've got a herd of elephants that's probably just come in from Chitwa. They've been drinking. And they're disappearing as well. Just listen to the sounds of them feeding. Very, very high grass diet this time of year with all this delicious, nutrient-rich grasses around. So we're on the boundary with Torchwood and Chitwa currently just to see if the tracks of that pride came out. And if they don't, then there's a very good chance that they're still in Torchwood. Hello, Donnie. You want to know how much food elephants require? Well, a big bull elephant feeds in about 350 kilograms of wet material every day. The reason I say wet is because vegetation is normally measured when it's dry. That's how scientists measure the biomass of the vegetation. So when we say 350 wet, if you dried it, it'd obviously lose a lot of its weight. But that's a big male. Obviously, females would eat a lot less than that, and youngsters even less so. But that's a lot of food. That's 700 pounds of wet food. Can you imagine? Let's try and reposition so we can get another view. Oh, there's some more elephants down there. Elephants. 350 kilograms, 700 pounds. Can you imagine? You struggle with half a kilogram of food. A pound of food, don't we? Some people might. There are these competitions in South Africa. You can eat a kilogram steak and drink a litre of beer and they'll put your name on the board. I know a few people who've done it. That's what I was looking for. There's a baboon in the tree there, Theo. You see him? In the fork of that tree. We had some tracks of baboons. Had their tracks all over the road just now. The reason why they stand out like they do is because when a baboon is moving quite quickly, you can actually mistake their track for that of a leopard or even a lion if you don't look carefully. Obviously, the toes are different. Oh, some baboons have just crossed the road, but there's a nice fellow in the marula tree. I think that's what they're feeding on at the moment. There's more in this other tree here, so it's definitely marula season. You see him popping them in his mouth. Long dog-like face.
Stations crossing back to the north as we've been in.
Baboons everywhere. Let's try and move up a bit. Maybe we get these other ones over here. Maybe get them climbing. Or are you happy with that, dear? Let's go. Just roll forward. Baboons, unfortunately, everybody, are normally quite skittish with cars. Unfortunately, it's got to do with human-wildlife conflict. And baboons good at accessing people's food. And so you do find in and around reserves that due to poor management of waste and poor management of food, baboons become a problem. But I essentially think people are the problem that lead to the baboons becoming a little bit of a nuisance. Oh, there he goes. He's coming down the tree really quickly. There he's on the floor. Baboons feel much better being on the ground when we see them. They are very sort of terrestrial animals. You see how he climbed down the tree. He was a bit jumpy, and now he's on the floor. He's happy. Whereas vervet monkeys are the opposite. They go up trees. They go up trees and as far up as they can if they're skittish of people. And obviously, this has got to do with evolution. There's quite a few baboons on the floor there. Let me just roll forward, and you get that one scratching. You got him just above. All got to do with evolution and the competition. We spoke earlier about inter-specific competition between species. So there's been competition between humans and baboons and monkeys for a very long time on the African continent. And obviously baboons, if they get up a tree, and you've got maybe hundreds of years ago, you've got a tribe of people that are competing with the baboons, they would be going, and if the baboon went up the tree, it'd be quite easy for people to get them, or to at least throw sticks and stones at them up the tree. So they'd rather jump down and run away. Whereas vervets can go much higher than baboons can, because they're much lighter. And they try to go up a tree and sort of hide behind branches. A little bit lighter, can access taller trees, and so their strategy is to go up. But when a baboon sees a leopard, they go up the tree. So it's interesting, they're different behavioral mechanisms, people versus leopards. Okay, we're going to have a little look at our fellows here, our family, and then while we do so, we'll send you back over to Kalahari, Tswalu.
Alrighty guys, so we did a quick loop. There was one springbok, but it was in the wrong direction, heading towards the waterhole. Not much activity. As you can imagine now, with it getting warmer, there's quite a bit of animals that's going to go into hiding, get away from the sun. Even though they're going to enjoy the little bit of heat today, they'll still prefer not being in the sun during the warm part of the day. So heading back towards those cheetahs now to quickly go and have a last look at them, see if they don't want to maybe move their position when they start to get a little warm, when the shade disappears where they're lying right now. But yeah, I don't think they're going to hunt this morning, so I do feel like we're going to come back this afternoon, unless we hear about something really impressive that the other guys found maybe this morning, and come and see if they don't want to hunt when it gets a little later. I feel like there's great potential for them to look to hunt. So as soon as it starts cooling down this afternoon, I think there's going to be some action happening, which we'll hopefully be able to put on camera as well. But yeah, nice and quiet at the moment. Not much going on around here. It could also be just because, possibly they were looking to hunt this morning and they had a couple of chases and they literally chased everything away from this area. When they were busy hunting and so on. So it'll take some time for the herbivores to come back into the area, maybe this afternoon only. But yeah, guys, we're going to head towards those cheetahs. For the meantime, you're going to go over to Tristan, okay?
I hope so. I'm sure that at some point Mo's patience will be rewarded. Perseverance and patience is always the best recipe out here. It certainly makes things a lot easier. Anyway, we've moved on from our leopards. We're at Twin Dams at the moment, just watching the weavers go about their business, as they always do at this time of the year in this particular spot. They absolutely love this tree, and they're always up and down and all over the place, making rather a lot of noise and feverishly building. But the reason I actually came to this little waterhole was just to check around, just to see if that lesser moorhen is still around. It's a nice bird to get out here. It wouldn't be a first for me. I've seen them before. In fact, one right here at this particular pan back in 2012. It used to fly from here to Baboon Pan and back, so we used to catch it every now and then. And then there was one also on Arethusa in 2012 after the flooding. And you find them typically after big rains. They come in and they use these little flooded grassy areas. You can see particularly this little pan, lots of grass that kind of sticks out in perfect places for the likes of a lesser moorhen to kind of live. The other thing that often makes an appearance after rains and in flooded sections like this are the crakes. So there's been quite a few sightings of corn crake, which is a special bird. Brent once had it on Cheetah Plains. And then you get the African crake, as well as, if you're really lucky, maybe a spotted crake, which there was one actually seen in the Sabi Sands a few days ago on Singita. So it's always good to come and check flooded sections, just kind of scope out with the binos and kind of have a little look around. I don't see any movement today, so it doesn't look like they're here, but those birds can be easily overlooked, particularly at this time of the day when it starts to get really warm. Those secretive shy birds, they start to just get in as thickets and shady sections, and so it's better to come kind of really early in the morning or late afternoon, and then you often see them sort of scooting about on the edges of the grassy areas. So we'll just keep coming and having a little look around. You never know, maybe we get lucky at some point and pick up one of those more kind of rare water birds. I'm pretty sure we'll get some more, particularly if we get another good bout of rain. Talking about birds, though, I was at Chitwa Dam when we were with that Ellie, and I was looking. I didn't see any sign of the pratincoles, and this was the first year that I haven't seen them in a long time. I'm not sure if maybe somebody has seen them, but I certainly haven't over the course of the last little bit. Like I say, they generally are pretty predictable and normally at Chitwa Dam fairly regularly, but this year seems as though not much in the way of pratincoles at the dam. There have been lots of three-banded plovers all over the place and a few common sandpipers, but I haven't seen anything else. Has anyone actually had any other rarities of terms of water birds? Because it's a good time to be looking for them with the amount of rain that we've had. You often get some kind of rare things that fly in. There's a bird at the moment that I'm hoping might make an appearance somewhere in this general vicinity. It's called a Madagascan cuckoo. Now, generally occurs on Madagascar, but there's two birds that are being seen at the moment. One was seen in the central part of South Africa, and the other one was seen on the eastern side of South Africa. Now, those two birds have somehow got to get back to where they've come from, and so I'm hoping that they cross through maybe one of these areas and somebody picks it up. They've got a call that's a little bit, it's not similar once you hear it, but it kind of reminds me of a red-chested cuckoo, but a much, much slower version of it. So if we hear it, we'll have to, go racing off to try and find it. We'll be very lucky if we see that bird. There's no record for a Madagascan cuckoo in the Sabi Sands, so it would be a really nice bird to get in this area. I'm just trying to think of all the other rarities that have been seen of late. There's blue-cheeked bee-eater recently. Crake was seen. Red-winged starlings, those are also quite rare for this area. Very common elsewhere, but Sabi Sands, I've never seen them here. Capped wheatear. So there's a few random things that have been showing up. Always, when you get big rains, you get some very odd birds arriving. We should also be looking out for white-breasted cuckoo shrikes. They often come through when it's been raining a little bit like this.
Okay, I'm going to carry on. I'll probably do a little bit of birding and see how things are going, just amble along the banks of the Mulawati. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Tswalu and the cheetah.
All right, guys, back at the cheetah sighting again. Now you can actually, now when they're lying as flat as they are, you can actually see how thin those bellies are. You can actually see the hip bones. Well, not the hip bones, the rib cage coming out and so on. So they're definitely going to look to hunt this afternoon. But as you can see, flat, like their bellies at the moment. So I think what we are going to do is we're going to spend a minute or so more with them and then start moving on as well. Come back this afternoon and see if they don't want to give us some action. But for this, middle part of the day, I don't think there's going to be much more happening apart from them moving to another piece of shade. It's going to get hot soon, and with that being the case, they won't want to be in the sun like they are right now. They might have had a busy night. They're quite close to a waterhole where the spotted hyenas like to come during the evening, so they might have been chased around a little bit or so. And with that being the case, just looking to relax a little bit before they get active again. But out for the count at the moment, only the ear flicking every now and again when there's a fly sitting on it. You can see not even the tails are moving. Lazy. But they are beautiful. Something quite interesting which I only heard from one of our guides working here at Tswalu the other day. Jerome, to answer your question, no, not at the moment. We don't have any cheetahs with collars. What does happen, though, is if we do have a cheetah that we maybe had to help, let's say he or she got an injury and it was from a man-made object. Say, let's say they run away from danger and they unfortunately run into the fence line or something like that, and we decide that it is necessary for us to help that animal, we will sometimes collar the animal just to make sure that we can keep track of its movements and make sure that he or she is healing the way we want them to. But at the moment, no collars on the cheetahs. The dogs have collars on and the hyenas have collars on, because with the dogs having a newly formed pack and being quite a bit more, quite a lot less in numbers. Here in Tswalu, we need to keep track of their movements constantly, and also they move quite a bit, so it always is nice to make sure that you know where they are for the conservation team, not necessarily for us. And then the hyenas, with them being just over a year in the reserve now, we still need to, want to, make sure that everything is okay with them, but no collars on the cheetahs, not currently. If we should introduce a new cheetah into the reserve, that'll also be the case, where we put a collar on her or him, just to make sure that they are adapting well and making sure that everything is good on their side. Not that we need to introduce any more cheetahs, like we mentioned earlier, or yesterday afternoon actually. We've got a very healthy population, so it will most likely only be to introduce new genetics into the reserve if we need to. However, I don't feel like that needs to be the case at the moment. But yeah, guys, to come back to what I was talking about, when you look at a leopard, you use the whisker count to ID the animal and so on. And with cheetahs, I suppose you can do that as well. But one of our very experienced guides told me the other day that the easiest way to look at or to identify a cheetah is to look at the spots on the inside of their front leg. And that is the way they typically use to ID the cheetahs. These two boys, I mean, we know them so well. As soon as you see them, you know that's them. But if it's one that you don't see often, you can actually use the spot pattern on the inside of the front legs to actively identify the cat. There's a little less spot, so it's easier to match up or to find which individual it is, which is something I never knew. So that's quite interesting for me as well. But as you can imagine, with a cheetah having so many small spots all over its face and over the entire body, it's difficult to look elsewhere. You can get confused quite quickly. But yeah, lazy at the moment. Not moving a muscle. But hopefully they'll recharge the batteries now and then have a full battery pack when we come out this afternoon and are in the mood for running around and chasing animals and doing all of those exciting things when we come back. That would be great. But yeah, guys, I think what we're going to do, they're not going to do much. So we'll be the active ones. We're going to love and leave them. For the meantime, we're going to send you over to Tristan, okay?
Well, I feel your kind of thought pattern. I hope that it's going to be the same this afternoon for us too. We'll try and head back to those 3 and see if there's actually a little bit more activity than what we had this morning. I suspect though early afternoon they're going to be sleeping, so we're just going to have to be patient with it and just kind of wait until the later sort of portion of the afternoon, and then hopefully they'll get moving. They are quite close to the western sort of boundary of Chitwa, so hopefully they don't carry on westwards. Hopefully they just stay in there and then just move into a nicer spot where we can see them. That will be a treat. Also, it's always kind of a good place to go because we know that Thandi and Cub are spending a lot more time on Chitwa in the Mulawanini, so it might be worth just scratching that area as well this afternoon. You never know what you can come up with. These cats are very close to one another at the moment. Kuchava, Sibui and Thandi are all overlapping at Chitwa. It's like they're all kind of edges of their territory, all hit Chitwa Dam from various angles. So I'm sure there's going to be a blowout at some point with those girls. They're going to meet up, and who knows then what will happen. We know that Thandi's already had a kind of altercation with Kuchava recently, and prior to that Sibui, which she came off second best in. But who knows, you never know. Any day can result in something different, that's for sure. Otherwise, it's really quiet. I haven't seen any other tracks or anything to speak of. Seems like quite a few Ellies have been around, but other than that, fairly quiet. Simon, I mean, yes and no. So personally, struggle with it. I mean, there's one or two that I can kind of think are, or pretty confident I'd be able to ID. We used to have actually a leopard a few years ago that used to have a little X in his pad. So when he stood, you could see this little kind of X shape, which was just a scarring on his foot. So he was super easy, so you knew it was him. But for the most part, I struggle with it. There are people that, especially the really kind of good trackers, the guys that are the best of the best, they're able to differentiate pretty quickly and are normally quite right, because they spend so many hours on foot tracking them. It's repetitive, so they start to learn the slight subtle changes in toe shapes or pad shape or size. What I normally go off is a combination of the size, area that I'm in, and then one or two little things that I can try and kind of figure out, like Tingana, for example. If you're lucky. Oh, hello, Carmine Beaters. Nice to see you guys. I actually saw quite a lot of them in Kruger recently, but good to see them on Djuma. It's been a couple of years since I've seen Carmines. Unfortunately, it's flying away from us, so I can get on camera.
nice to see. On the soft substrate, you actually got a toe that's red. His one claw doesn't sheath properly, so you can pick up his track in the right kind of substrate from that. Hukamuri has a very long toe, so that helps with him. So it really just depends on the individual. Some have very kind of unique markers that help you, but I really do struggle with it, if I'm honest. I don't find it particularly easy to differentiate leopard tracks from one from another. Not saying that people can't, though. Some can and do it very, very well. I wonder if we'll ever get sausage fruit on this sausage tree. I was just driving past. It's the only sausage tree on the entire property, but I've never seen any fruit on it. And maybe that's because it is the only one that it actually just doesn't ever get pollinated enough to cause it to grow any fruit. It's a bit sad, actually. It would be so nice to have a kind of big sausage tree with big hanging fruits that come down from there. Alright, so I'm going to carry on and see what else I can find. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Stephen. Sausage trees indeed, fruit. I haven't seen the one on Djuma fruit, but we've actually found a few when we were doing the Wild Earth expedition the year before last. Quite a few of them in Vuetela camp. Obviously, where the elephants haven't been able to get to them. I was just down in the garden route, in fact, at an old lecturer friend of mine's house, and on the road he lives in, down in George. A number of sausage trees growing there, which is quite interesting. It's not their sort of natural range, but a very forestry sort of tree-orientated town. George, the campus I went to down there is where I did my nature conservation studies. So there's a lot of nature con happening, a lot of forestry, so all of the suburbs are lined with all sorts of different South African trees and exotic trees that have fallen under the banner of forestry. Very educational living and studying down there, because practical aspects were on your doorstep. Here we come down. Just by the way, we were able to find 3 of the Torchwood Pride lionesses just before. They were very much where we thought they were with regards to the tracks. They didn't come out. They were very close to Torchwood watering hole, but unfortunately a little bit too deep in the vegetation. We weren't able to broadcast. So here we are, a very wet and saturated Mawati. Yeah, it's good to be back in the Mawati. Unfortunately, I've unplugged my radio. It's nice to just walk around again in the riverbed. Now, this was flowing recently. We missed it. I'm very disappointed. Hornbills, very disappointed. Remember last year we were dancing around in the river. Very, very special indeed. But see how saturated it is. And there are leopard cub tracks right here. Or is that Now, it's very difficult in this soil, when it's wet like this, to ascertain freshness of tracks, because the saturatedness of it makes it very difficult to actually pick up on fresh in this sort of soil, when it's wet like this, to ascertain freshness of tracks, because the saturatedness of it makes it very difficult to actually pick up on some soft ground. See if we can find who it might be. We're going to run out of time this morning, but you never know. That is the thing as well with coming back after some time, is you don't know who's been out and about. Even missing a day or an afternoon or morning, you don't know who's been moving around. So as Tristan said this morning, it's nice to just be out and familiarize yourself with the vegetation. So those tracks aren't coming out here, freshly anyway. It's all right, we'll find a feline. Kim, that's a very good question. Obviously rain is a big one for destroying tracks, but wind, high windy conditions, they change the aspect and the shadow and the shape. They blow the track inside. It loses its edges, so it loses its freshness. So weather is definitely rain and wind are the two major ones. But the middle of the day, when the sun is directly above us, it's very hard to figure out tracks because you need that angle. It's why the early morning and the sort of late afternoon is the best time, because it gives you a shadow aspect so you can actually see the track from an angle. How wonderful. It is very, very wet. I got caught in a downpour yesterday on my way through in Hoedspruit. That was about 40 mils of rain in about half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour. As I got to Hoedspruit, the heavens opened up. And needless to say, I got very wet. It was lovely after a nice warm day. To be cooled down by rain like that is splendid. But we'll carry on. Heading along on this road, slowly back to camp for some breakfast.
The new year has arrived, and with it comes all kinds of other new beginnings. From hyena cubs to meerkat pups, the bush is full of new life. If you want to find out more, then sign up to be an explorer and join our New Beginnings Fireside Chat. Tristan and Steve will be looking at what's new here in the wilderness as we enter 2021. Join them on the 17th of January, straight after the Sunset Safari. For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique Wild Earth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient quartzites Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with Wild Earth and of course meet the meerkats. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinde Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
You can see it is a beautiful summer's day, a hot one, but beautiful. We've got a few little puffy clouds, there's some nice blue sky, greenery, and then hidden far in the distance, which will be difficult to make out, is a very lanky, tall creature that is, well, doing what we should be doing and finding some shade. But in order for us to show you the giraffe that is sticking out of the greenery, we needed to park in the sun. I must be honest, I'm a little jealous of our giraffe that's kind of sitting there. It's amazing actually how well they sort of blend in. That one now obviously stands out because it's in the shade. If it was in a lighter sort of area and just moved one step to the left, you would have no idea that it was there. But it's nice to see, always good that there's some giraffe around, because in this area we often go through times where we don't see a lot of giraffe. Particularly now, I find generally late summer we start to kind of see very few of them, and it's only when sort of midwinter to sort of late winter, when the knobthorns start flowering, that we start to see the giraffe numbers kind of increase again. Where they go and what they get up to, I'm not quite sure. It's not like there isn't a plethora of food in this area for them to eat, but they seem to find other kind of more desirable places to go and feed, so it's good to have them. Hopefully we'll also get some buffalo around soon. I haven't heard of any buffalo. When I was up in Tswalu side, there was a herd that hung around there the entire time we were there, but I wonder if we going to see some buffalo starting to come. It's certainly the right conditions for them. Pat, I agree, yes, everyone is seemingly hiding in the shade today. It's a warm day. When it's 9 o'clock in the morning and the sun feels like it's burning you already, it's going to be a fairly hot day. The only good thing is that you'll see in front of that giraffe is that the leaves are slightly moving, so there is a nice breeze that is blowing that is still nice and cool because of the cloud cover this morning. But I reckon by this afternoon it's going to be stiflingly hot as the breeze starts to warm up a little bit. So I'm not surprised that the animals are in the shade. It's kind of typical of summer. The first sort of hour of morning game drive and the last hour of afternoon game drive is really where you see any sort of activity. Otherwise, the animals typically shade and taking it as easy as possible. They obviously, like us, feel the heat, and so they have tactics to avoid it, much like what this giraffe is doing, which is just ruminating, resting, and sitting in the shade, taking it easy. Talking of shade, actually, pretty much that time of the day, really, where we're going to start heading for some shade of our own, as well as some breakfast. So that will be quite wonderful. It'll be nice to kind of get out of the sun for a little bit, that's for sure. But hopefully all of you have enjoyed the morning. It's been wonderful for Steve and I to come back. We came in together yesterday and we both were saying how pretty the bush is looking. So we're looking forward to the next little bit. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all this afternoon on our sunset safari.